Chapter 56 Star-Fusing Grass. As soon as he heard that voice, Long Chen recognized that it was from Xia Baiqi. After she had lost the pill battle to him and angrily revealed the scandal between her and Wei Tsang, it was as if she had completely disappeared. Now it seemed that this idiot woman would not let him obtain the infant golden striped tiger so easily. 3,500,000. 3,510,000. As soon as Long Chen countered, Xia Baiqi immediately followed without hesitation. The rest of the crowd was completely silent. In reality, an average golden striped tiger's price was somewhere between 2 million to 2,500,000. But due to the lack of supply, it wasn't something that could be bought so easily. As soon as the infant was taken from its mother, it had to be immediately sold off. Otherwise, if even just 10 days passed, the infant would have gradually grown up and the difficulty in taming it would shoot up, making it not worth the price. That was why Long Chen's bid of 3 million was actually quite reasonable. Since such an opportunity was rather rare, it was worth it to spend a bit of extra money. But now that the price had surpassed 3,500,000, Long Chen had already given up on it. However, since it was Xia Baiqi, he couldn't just let it go so easily. He needed to get the star-fusing grass. It should be coming up extremely quickly, and if that idiot woman deliberately messed with him, the price of the star-fusing grass might skyrocket past his reach. 4 million. Long Chen ground his teeth, and a trace of anger had entered his voice. 4,010,000. Xia Baiqi seemed to have heard Long Chen's anger. Her mood increased greatly and her voice even had some joy in it. Long Chen was even more sure that this idiot woman was trying to mess with him. She probably wasn't even interested in this golden spotted tiger, her target was him. 5 million, angrily retorted Long Chen. 5,010,000. As expected, as soon as Long Chen put his bid, Xia Baiqi's voice would immediately follow. The crowd was watching their two private rooms, everyone understanding that the two of them were at odds with each other. That woman is a grand Xia princess. But as for the other private room, it sounds like he's very young. I don't think I recognize the voice. Wow, do you even get news? You don't recognize the voice of Phoenix Cry's junior generation's #1 junior warrior? With this reminder, that person immediately understood. No wonder the Grand Xia's princess would go against him, so it was Long Chen. On the day of the Phoenix Cry Lantern Festival, everyone had seen Xia Baiqi lose to Long Chen, and she had fallen into disrepute. The reason everyone despised her now was because of Long Chen, so it was obvious she was now aiming for him. Yao Niqian looked from Long Chen's private room to Xia Baiqi's private room. No one knew what she was thinking, but a bright smile appeared on her charming lips. Baiqi, don't waste too much. The auction has just started. We still have to see whether there will be other good things in the auction later. We can't spend too much just for revenge against him, Xia Changfeng advised Xia Baiqi. This was just the start. The best items had yet to appear, and if they were to run out of money too early, then they would only be able to watch as they were taken away by others. No, I definitely can't let him off after he humiliated me. I also lost the beast flame to that scoundrel. Don't worry, I'll use my personal money. I definitely won't dip into yours. Xia Baiqi was viciously glaring at Long Chen's private room. Then fine. But there will be plenty of opportunities in the future, so calm down a bit. Just let it go if he raises the price again. Seeing how obstinate Xia Baiqi was acting now, Xia Changfeng also had no way to calm her down. He really didn't have any way to handle this young sister of his. After all, she was a pill apprentice, and that status was even slightly greater than his status as a prince. Long Chen smiled slightly. If she wanted to play, then he'd play. In any case, just waiting around was boring. Congratulations to Princess Baiqi on obtaining the infant golden spotted tiger, smiled Yao Niqian. A couple aides brought the infant down. Since the price for it had already reached a sky-high 5 million gold coins, there was no need for her to call out any going once, going twice. She directly skipped that, as it would only result in an awkward silence. Xia Baiqi was surprised. When she realized that Long Chen had schemed to make her waste her money, she couldn't help angrily cursing, Long Chen, you definitely won't have a good death. When encountering a random crazy person shouting and cursing, you absolutely could not try to argue with them. 1. You'd never be able to win an argument against an idiot, and 2. Even if you won, it would still be a kind of disgrace. So Long Chen just laughed and hid inside his private room. He imagined what Xia Baiqi's current expression was. The auction continued, and all kinds of precious items and oddities were brought out, dazzling the crowd. But Long Chen was no longer low-key as he had been for the previous items. He practically shouted out at least one bid for every single item. The result was that as long as Long Chen bid, Xia Baiqi would immediately follow. She would always bid an extra 10,000 against him, and for a while, the auction became just a battlefield between the two of them. 1,800,000. 1,810,000. 2,500,000. 2,510,000. Yao Niqin laughed to the side. She didn't say anything as both parties shouted with all their force. Baiqi, stop making trouble. He's clearly just playing you. No matter how much money you have, it's still not enough, angrily said Xia Changfeng. Under Long Chen's enthusiastic help, Xia Baiqi had already bought over a dozen items, several of them which were absolutely useless to her. She had already spent over 200 million gold coins. Xia Changfeng couldn't help feeling a bit regretful. Originally, Xia Baiqi hadn't even wanted to come. Due to the details of her affair with Wei Cong spreading out to the whole city, she had kept hiding in her room without daring to show herself. But Xia Changfeng had wanted her to come out to this auction in order to get her out of the mood she was in, as well as for financial assistance with bidding for things he wanted. After all, as a pill apprentice, she had plenty of money. And now Xia Baiqi had thrown out 200 million gold coins in just a short time. He couldn't help feeling distressed at how much money she was wasting. At this time, Xia Baiqi had also become clear-headed. No matter how much money she had, there was no way she could buy everything here. If she continued like this, then she would just be playing into Long Chen's scheme. You don't need to be so worried, princess. If you want revenge, wait till Long Chen truly goes for something. Taking revenge then won't be too late, smiled Crown Prince Chu Yang. Yes, Brother Chu Yang is correct. Since he has a private room, the Huayun Pavilion must expect that he is planning on buying some important things, advised Xia Changfeng. Hearing the two of them, Xia Baiqi's anger calmed a bit. But her hatred of Long Chen only continued to grow. Ever since she had first met Long Chen, she had suffered defeat after defeat. It was as if Long Chen was her nemesis and was completely suppressing her. Xia Baiqi now paused competing with Long Chen over the wares. Once the two of them calmed down, the auction once more returned to its normal state. At this time, the sky had already darkened. The auction paused temporarily in order to serve dinner. They opened the curtains and hundreds of women walked out with dining cars covered in delicious foods and alcohol. This dinner was offered for free by the Huayun Pavilion. They were worried people might leave if they got hungry. Brother Long, we should go down too. To be honest, we were so nervous with what was happening with you and Xia Baiqi that we're now incredibly hungry, said Fatty Yu. No need to go down. Long Chen shook his head. Two beautiful maids came in with a long table and set it down. There were dozens of rich dishes on the table. The smell coming off of them caused people to drool in anticipation. But that Fatty Yu only foolishly looked at the two maids, completely forgetting his hunger. Everyone please eat. We'll pour the alcohol. Those two maids paid no attention to Fatty Yu's gaze. Their gaze swept over Long Chen with some delight. Oh, so it's you guys. Long Chen was a bit surprised that these two were two of the four who had welcomed him when he had come to the Huayun Pavilion earlier. Ah, young Master Long Chen, so you actually remember us. Those two women were excited to be in his presence. One of them cast a furtive look around and then actually took out a small book. Her face was completely red as she asked, Young Master Long Chen, can you autograph this for me? Long Chen stared blankly. Taking the small book, his eyes widened. A tall, handsome man with sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, and dancing black hair had been drawn on the cover. Looking closely at that man, It was actually 80% similar to him, however it was more handsome and dashing than he was. "Is this supposed to be me?" doubtingly asking Long Chen. "You didn't know about it?" Not just the two maids, but even Shi Feng and the others were surprised. This is the hardcover limited edition Phoenix Cry Divine Battle. It costs 35 gold coins. We used half our yearly salary in order to buy it. We're begging you, please can you sign it? Flipping open this Phoenix Cry Divine Battle book and seeing what was inside, even he exclaimed in admiration. Reading this book would involuntarily cause a person's heart to be excited. Even he had an urge to buy it. Seeing the writing brush the maids handed to him, Long Chen bitterly laughed. "Did you guys plan this in advance?" The two maids reddened. He was right on. The two of them had run over to send Long Chen dinner just to see him. Brandishing the brush, Long Chen wrote his name boldly atop the cover. Back when he was unable to cultivate, his mother would always spend time teaching him reading and writing, so his calligraphy was extremely polished. And now that he could cultivate, the strokes of his brush would all contain a vigorous grandeur and were filled with a sword-like will. The two maids were endlessly excited when Long Chen handed their book back to them. After thanking him vigorously, they hastily ran away. They didn't even bother with pouring the alcohol. Instead, they most likely rushed off to show their fellow maids. "Brother Long, my family has collected several hundreds of that book. How about you help me sign each one?" Shou Ho rolled his eyes and laughed at him. "Give it up. With your carelessness, it's better to just keep them in storage. Aren't you planning on selling the ones Brother Long signs for profit?" One of the other noble heirs in their group disdainfully said. "Nonsense, am I that kind of person?" Shou Ho angrily retorted. But looking at everyone's disdainful expression, his confidence faltered and he spread his arms. "I'm just trying to figure out how much Brother Long's signature is worth." "Shut your mouth. Let's eat." Long Chen cursed and everyone laughed, starting to devour the food that had been brought over. After they finished eating, those two maids ran back and took away the dining car as well as offering tea and fruits. In less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the auction once more began. Yao Niqian's charming voice rang out. The next item in the auction is 1,000-year-old star-fusing grass. Chapter 57 Ing Ho's Methods. Hearing that the 1,000-year-old star-fusing grass was about to be auctioned, Long Chen's heart jumped. This was the real reason he had come to the auction. He absolutely had to obtain it. If he could use 1,000-year-old star-fusing grass, he would be 100% certain of being able to refine an upper-quality star-fusing pill. And such a star-fusing pill would have a 100% chance of resolving the foreign spiritual energies within Chu Yao's body. Originally, Long Chen hadn't planned on using 1,000-year-old star-fusing grass. He had thought that just 100-year-old star-fusing grass was already good enough. After all, even just 100-year-old star-fusing grass was difficult to obtain. That was because star-fusing grass was an essential ingredient in many different second-tier medicinal pills. It was also extremely hard to gather star-fusing grass, so it was in extremely low supply. Using ordinary star-fusing grass versus 1,000-year-old star-fusing grass to refine pills simply could not be compared. For Chu Yao, he didn't care how much money he had to fork over. Originally, he hadn't thought that it would be a problem to obtain this star-fusing grass, and thus he hadn't attempted to try buying it through back channels. But truthfully, that most likely would not have worked anyways. The Huaiyun Pavilion refused all backdoor channels, since if news of that leaked, it would hurt their reputation. Although the star-fusing grass was rare, it wasn't as if there were many alchemists. Long Chen had been highly confident in purchasing it with his current financial ability. But now that idiot Xia Baiqi had decided to start messing with him, if he let her realize what his goal was, then that idiot woman would force Long Chen to fork out all his money, bankrupting him of even the clothes he was wearing. That was also the reason why Long Chen had shouted out a bid on every item before, no matter what it was. And as expected, she also shouted out a higher bid every time. He deliberately set himself against her, forcing her to lose money. That was him setting up for the star-fusing grass. 10 strands of 1,000-year-old star-fusing grass, an essential ingredient for second-tier medicinal pills. I don't need to explain just how precious such a thing is. The starting price is 500,000 gold coins," announced Yao Niqian. 700,000. 800,000. At least 10 people immediately started bidding. Most of them were all elderly faces. Long Chen was familiar with a few of them. They were all people he had seen in the Alchemist Guild. But they were all pill apprentices. There were a couple unfamiliar faces, but they were most likely alchemists as well. Other people wouldn't know exactly just how precious such an item was or how to use it. 2 million. One of the seniors had shouted a bid of 1,800,000 and suppressed all the other bidders. Yao Niqian had begun to start her count when Long Chen finally shouted his bid. Originally he had been praying that Xia Baiqi would shout a bid before him. If he then bid against that, it would be seen as him trying to provoke her. That kind of situation had the highest chance of him obtaining it at the lowest price. But it appeared that the heavens were not in a listening mood. Despite being a pill apprentice, Xia Baiqi had no interest in the star-fusing grass, causing Long Chen to curse inside. "Little idiot sister, do you want to come out to test the waters?" As soon as he shouted the bid, he also sent some indifferent words to Xia Baiqi's private room. The crowd was quiet. Was Long Chen trying to use this as a pretext to intimidate Xia Baiqi? "Don't take the bait, Baiqi. He's intentionally trying to infuriate you." Zai Changfeng hastily tried to calm her down, afraid she would get angry and once more foolishly waste money. "Do you think I'm an idiot? I won't fall for such an inferior trick," coldly replied Xia Baiqi. She was filled with contempt for Long Chen. Hearing her reply, Long Chen celebrated inside. Of course, he didn't dare show that outside. In a peculiar voice, he said, "Little idiot sister, could it be that you're embarrassed about running out of money?" Don't worry, this lady has enough money to bury you alive," angrily retorted Xia Baiqi. She actually ran out of her private room and cursed right at Long Chen's private room. A stately imperial princess actually revealed her vulgar, uncouth side publicly. Everyone's expressions were strange as they exchanged glances. Xia Changfeng's face darkened, hastily pulling the Xia Baiqi who was cursing madly back into the private room. This time Xia Baiqi had truly lost the Grand Xia's face. Seeing that the atmosphere had become a bit strange and suppressed, Yao Niqian hastily said, "Young Master Long Chen bids 2 million. Are there any higher bids?" 2 million going once. 2 million going twice. Long Chen finally relaxed when he saw Yao Niqian begin counting down. It seemed he had managed to trick that idiot Baiqi again. 2 million going dash. 3 million. A soft voice rang out calmly from another private room. Long Chen's expression changed and he turned to look at that private room. If he hadn't remembered wrong, then that was Ingho's private room. He wasn't a pill cultivator and also wasn't a merchant. He couldn't possibly know the true value of the star-fusing grass. And Long Chen's bid of 2 million already counted as a high price. Although the star-fusing grass was rare, it was something that could be collected if given enough time. If Long Chen wasn't in urgent need of it, he also wouldn't have offered such a price. But now Ingho had raised the price by 50%. Although nothing could be obtained cheaply at an auction, this price was far too high. And more importantly, star-fusing grass had absolutely no use to Ingho. A cold light flashed in Long Chen's eyes. This Ingho was even more difficult to handle than he had thought. He had underestimated him. As one of the 3 peak experts in the Phoenix Cry Empire, he was truly worthy of having his name stand alongside his father. He had easily seen through his rows. 3,010,000. Long Chen indifferently shouted out this bid. The only bidders were him and Ingho. If he didn't give up, then his only choice was to continue till the end. I really did have some use for this star-fusing grass, but since you want it, I'd feel bad quibbling with you over someone from the junior generation over it. You can have it." Ingho's soft feminine voice rang out. Long Chen was filled with anger. This Ingho was definitely an unscrupulous old killer. 4 million. As expected, as soon as Ingho said that, Xia Baiqi woke up and shouted out a new bid. Long Chen's face darkened. Fatty Yu and the others also had unsightly expressions. They could all tell that Ing Ho had played a trick on him. This junior dare accept your generosity. My father is an upright man who guards the wild border, protecting the empire and its people. I have my father's upright blood in my veins, so I simply cannot accept Senior Ing Ho's kindness. Long Chen originally didn't plan on saying these things. But being schemed against by Ing Ho had immediately revealed his fatal weak point. Long Chen's anger exploded, and if he didn't say a bit, then he would feel too irritated. Long Chen's words caused the noisy crowd to become deathly silent. Only Long Chen's words continued to echo. Every member of the Phoenix Cry Empire felt that Long Chen was being far too brazen. How could he nakedly give a slap to Ing Ho's face? Ing Ho was one of the backbones of the empire. Even the Empress Dowager and the Crown Prince had paid deferential respect to him. In fact, even Long Tianxiao wouldn't be so impolite. Although Long Chen's words didn't have a single real curse or insult, as long as someone wasn't an idiot, then they would know Long Chen was implicitly cursing Ing Ho. Young people really are hot-tempered. You need to train more. If you can't hold your anger in for such small things, then you won't be able to grow up properly. What no one had expected was that the high and mighty Ing Ho didn't show any anger at all and merely indifferently laughed. Quite a few people sighed inside. He really was worthy of being one of the empire's apex experts. That kind of bearing was something no one could aspire to. For million. Long Chen, are you embarrassed at your lack of money? Xia Baiqi's ridiculing laughter came from the side. Xia Baiqi wasn't actually an idiot. With just a small prod from Ing Ho, she realized that Long Chen actually greatly desired this star-fusing grass. Having suffered such a loss before, how could Xia Baiqi give up this opportunity to make things difficult for him? Long Chen took a deep breath. It really was the case of having your worries come true. Xia Baiqi hated him deeply, so he would need to be prepared to bleed his money dry in order to obtain this star-fusing grass. 5 million. Indifferently said Long Chen. An uproar shook the crowd. It seemed Long Chen viewed the star-fusing grass as a must-have, otherwise there was no way he would make such a sky-high bid. 10 million. What caused everyone's hearts to jump was that Xia Baiqi was even more vicious and immediately doubled the price. Long Chen merely nodded. There was nothing else for him to think about. Who asked Ing Ho to point out his weak point? He had to obtain the star-fusing grass. Time was too pressing and he couldn't allow this chance to pass by. And even if Long Chen gave in now, with the temperament of that idiot woman, it would only be a disgrace. 15 million, shouted Long Chen. 18,000,000. Xia Baiqi immediately bid after him. She had already descended into madness. She no longer cared about money. All she knew right now was that if Long Chen wanted it, she would definitely not let him have it. 20 million. Long Chen paused, but in the end he still shouted out this bid. The entire crowd was shocked. That number couldn't just be randomly shouted. That was money. The price had already multiplied crazily, and even if it was just to relieve anger, wasn't that still too expensive? If you bid again, I'll guarantee that this star-fusing grass will be yours. After Long Chen shouted out his bid, his heart calmed. Having handed his medicinal pills to the Huayun Pavilion, he had obtained a 20 million credit limit. In other words, he had obtained a 20 million gold coin loan from them. Thus, after using up all that, he calmed back down. If Xia Baiqi continued, he could only let the star-fusing grass go to her. But he had also made another decision. If Xia Baiqi dared to bid again, he wouldn't mind killing her for it. Baiqi, that's enough revenge. Now that you've raised the price so high, it's enough to relieve your anger. Xia Changfeng hastily pulled on Xia Baiqi. He was afraid she would become too wound up and really spend 20 million gold coins on something completely useless to her. Right, Baiqi, let it go. This time Long Chen has suffered a crushing defeat. Your anger has also been relieved. Crown Prince Chu Yang also advised her. Xia Baiqi nodded. She also felt that some of her anger had been relieved now that she had forced him to buy it for 10 times the price. And in truth, star-fusing grass wasn't useful to her. 20 million wasn't a small number, so she was also somewhat unwilling to part with so much. This lady will have some pity on a peasant like you. This trash medicinal grass is yours. Long Chen had finally succeeded in obtaining 10 strands of star-fusing grass for the high price of 20 million gold coins. Although he was somewhat pained, he did relax slightly. Killing people for their treasure was definitely something he wouldn't do unless pushed to the breaking point. Following this, the atmosphere in the auction gradually heated up and the prices slowly climbed. After just 2 items had passed, a hidden door opened in Long Chen's private room and a man walked in. Chapter 58 Mountain-Splitting Battle Axe. All the private rooms had a secret channel. After the guests in the private rooms successfully won an item, someone would come to send that item to them. There was no need to be like the people in the crowd who had to personally go in behind the stage or to handle the transaction after the auction ended. The person who had come in was precisely the one who had pulled Long Chen into participating in the auction, Fu Gui. He was holding a foot-long case with 10 stalks of star-fusing grass that shined brightly like stars. Young Master Long Chen, here are your goods. Fu Gui respectfully handed the case to Long Chen. To tell the truth, today was the most exciting day of his life. According to the Huayun Pavilion's rules, after subtracting a couple business costs, he would obtain 1% of what Long Chen had spent. Just the money Long Chen had just spent just now had given him enough to spend the rest of his life without having to worry about money ever again. Long Chen carefully examined the case. Each stalk of star-fusing grass had over 10 starry spots. Star-fusing grass would gain an extra star spot for every 100 years it was preserved. Thus its age was something that was obvious at a glance. Although some mishaps had occurred today and he had a stomach full of anger, he had at least managed to obtain his goal, so it had all been worth it. Only after putting away the case inside his spatial ring did he relax. All the star-fusing pill's ingredients had finally been collected. He could now start refining it. Young Master Long Chen, please wait a moment. Seeing that once Long Chen had stood up after collecting the star-fusing grass, the astute Fu Gui immediately knew he was planning on returning to his home. What? You want to stay? But I'm penniless right now, laughed Long Chen. He was itching to go refine pills. It was better to resolve Chu Yao's matter as soon as possible. You're our guest, and when I was coming over just now, my boss said your credit limit could be raised by another 30 million. So if you see anything you like, feel free to bid, smiled Fu Gui. He handed a crystal card to Long Chen. Currently Long Chen had 2 special crystal cards, but the 20 million on the other card had already been completely used up. The Huayun Pavilion had a special rule. Everyone participating in the auction would have to transfer their gold coins to the Huayun Pavilion in exchange for a credit limit. But they could only do that once. Once the auction started, you could not exchange for a higher credit limit. That was why most people would exchange as much money as they possibly could at the beginning in order to increase their spending limit. If you didn't buy anything or your credit had yet to be reached, the Huayun Pavilion would return your money to you without taking the slightest percentage. So every single person here had their own crystal card with all their money on it. Once the auction was over, the Huayun Pavilion would immediately take those cards back and deduct what they had spent. It was a very efficient process. For those like Long Chen who had used up all their money, the rule was that they could no longer add to their funds. But obviously the higher-ups of the Huayun Pavilion had opened a special backdoor for him. Long Chen hesitated for a moment as he looked at the crystal card in his hand. Originally he had been planning on going back to refine since he had no more money. Watching others spend while you had no money was also a kind of torment. But now that he had more funds, he truly was interested in the items that had yet to be auctioned. Fu Gui, we already have an agreement that you won't immediately demand money from me if the things I gave you don't sell. I can't immediately return the money you loaned me in that case. Don't worry, my boss has said that if those don't get auctioned off, the loan will just be written off as a gift to you, smiled Fu Gui. Long Chen was startled. Who is your boss? He. Sorry, but this little one cannot reveal that. Please don't make it hard on me, apologized Fu Gui. Although he was a bit puzzled, Long Chen still decided to stay. He really was interested in the later items of the auction. After Fu Gui left, the auction paused for a moment and began to serve tea. Whether it was to the auctioneers or the guests, this kind of tense atmosphere truly did use up a lot of energy. Such a huge auction naturally had to give its guests some breaks. Only then would they have the energy for the even more intense bidding later. Otherwise, if everyone was exhausted, the auction would have a weak finish. Obviously, the Huayun Pavilion had already made preparations to avoid that. After a 2-hour break, the auction once more began. Calculating the time, the auction had already gone on for 2 whole days. Due to the competition being too intense, no one had really felt the time passing. Every item brought out was even more precious than the ones before it, and the bidding became increasingly hostile. And the prices naturally shot up wildly as well. This was especially the case with Yao Niqian's encouragements. It was as if everyone had taken some kind of medicine that made them go wild. Looking at the impassioned crowd, Long Chen couldn't help feeling some admiration. After 2 days of auctioning, this Yao Niqian had figured out the majority of the people's temperaments, and now the atmosphere was completely under her control. Shi Feng, Fatty Yu, and the others had all been exposed to the grandness of the world. Even after these 2 days of auctioning, none of them were the slightest bit tired. Although none of them had the money to enter the competition, just watching those impassioned sky-high bids was stimulating on its own. The next item is the mountain-splitting battle axe. As she said this, a battle axe was carried on top of the stage. But everyone was shocked when they saw it. Naturally, they all knew what battle axes looked like. But they had never before seen such a battle axe before. It was absolutely enormous. That double-edged axe head was at least 5 feet long. It was as thick as an arm, and possessed an imposingness that was absolutely terrifying. Mountain-splitting battle axe. It was made from golden sand, and its hardness is unmatched. It weighs 2 tons, and is a symbol of power and martial might. It is said it was the weapon of a divinity, and placing it within your estate will scare off any spirits or ghosts. The starting price is 2 million. Dozens of nobles immediately began to bid. 2,010,000. 2,050,000. 2,080,000. In truth, the battle axe might be considered more of an ornament than anything else. Weighing 2 tons, it would be a miracle if you could even hold it, let alone wield it in battle. But Yao Niqian was not wrong. Such a domineering battle axe would definitely be a symbol of your status and power. The nobility especially were interested in such an item. Shi Feng, help me shout my bid, quietly said Long Chen. Shi Feng was startled. That's just a household item. What are you buying it for? Don't worry about it. I have my own use for it. Help me bid. If I do it myself, then that idiot woman will come to look for trouble, said Long Chen. At the very first moment he saw that mountain-splitting battle axe, he had thought of a certain huge figure, With Amon's physical strength, he should be able to use the battle axe properly. That axe's weight was something extremely hard to find in other weapons, and it was also incomparably sturdy. It was practically perfect for Amon to use. 2,910,000. 3 million. 3,050,000. The last bid was Shi Feng's. When others heard Shi Feng make such a high bid, they all shook their heads. Although it might possess a domineering might, it was simply an ornamental piece. 3 million was already too high of a price. 3,050,000 was already something others were unwilling to bid against. Xia Baiqi had been waiting to shout her own bid when she heard that voice come from Long Chen's private room. But hearing that the voice wasn't Long Chen's, she hesitated and didn't bid against it. It was already the later stages of the auction. The wares being auctioned were becoming increasingly better, and if she ended up using up her limit, she would only be able to watch as those good things were taken away by others. Although she was suspicious it was actually Long Chen, she wasn't certain, and after debating it for a moment, she still decided not to interfere. Long Chen celebrated when he saw the mountain-splitting battle axe be obtained so smoothly. Although, this item was something they were unable to bring into their private room, so Long Chen had to personally go get it. Long Chen followed the secret channel to below the stage. There were a dozen men guarding that place. His pupils contracted slightly when he saw them. Those people were actually all blood condensation experts. Just an auction already had so many experts. Just what was the bottom line of the Huayan Pavilion? Long Chen arrived in front of the mountain-splitting battle axe. Looking at the huge battle axe that was even larger than he was truly stunned. Reaching out a hand, he slowly rubbed the handle. He noticed that he was almost unable to wrap his hand around that handle, which was as thick as an arm. Up. Long Chen used his full force in an effort to raise that battle axe. It shook slightly and slowly rose into the air, but after just rising 3 inches, it fell back down to the ground with a crash. The shelf that was originally holding it was immediately smashed into pieces. A huge explosion followed as it fell to the ground. Who would have that young master Long Chen possessed such divine strength? It really is admirable. Those guards had all been watching Long Chen. Originally they had been looking at him with some disdain as he had spent so much on something that was only ornamental. But seeing him actually able to raise the axe with just one hand caused all their disdain to disappear. And even though he had dropped it in the end, it was still completely shocking. They were all clear on just how heavy it was. It required at least 2 people using their full strength to raise. But Long Chen had succeeded in lifting it with just a single hand. Plus he had been holding it from the handle. The kind of force required to lift it from there was difficult to even imagine. That was why they had all opened their mouths to exclaim their admiration. Long Chen shook his head and bitterly smiled. This thing really is just an imposing ornament. Who said it wasn't? It's so heavy, just who could manage to use it? One of them nodded. After confirming the huge axe's heaviness, Long Chen no longer showed off anything. He directly stored it within his spatial ring. Returning to his private room, Long Chen's indifferent expression became one of delight. That axe was definitely something Amon could use. If he had used his full force, then even he would have been able to use it. But it would exhaust too much of his strength. Fortunately, Amon wasn't the same. His physical body was the most abnormal, and physical strength was his main force. With this battle axe, even without using spiritual qi, his battle strength would be absolutely terrifying. As time passed, the later items became even more precious and rare. Treasures of heaven and earth, cultivation techniques, medicinal pills, they were all available. The prices became even more frightening. There was practically not a single item that was sold for less than 5 million gold coins anymore. Everyone should look carefully at our next item. An exceptionally confident smile appeared on Yao Niqian's face. She raised her hand, showing off what she was holding. Chapter 59 Earth Class Battle Skill. In her hand was a thin book. When it appeared, the whole crowd went silent for a moment before exploding into startled cries. Most of the people present all knew that every 3 years the Huayan Pavilion would have their final auction item be a battle skill. Counting the time, this was precisely the 3rd year. If it was just an ordinary battle skill, it wouldn't have attracted so many startled cries. However, it was no ordinary battle skill. It was an Earth-class battle skill. Earth-class battle skills only existed in legends. They could only be found within the hands of sects that were isolated from the mortal world. It was rumored the Phoenix Cry Empire's most precious treasure was just a portion of an Earth-class battle skill. Only the Imperial disciples could learn it. Thus, for most people, Earth-class battle skills were things they had only ever heard of in legends. Now that they could personally see it, although they knew such a thing would not be obtained by them, it still was something that caused their hearts to jump wildly. Earth-class battle skill, 3-style parting wind. Starting bid of 20 million. An Earth-class battle skill did not require much introduction. Just the Earth-class introduction was enough. 30 million. Xia Changfeng's bid came from his private room. That was the first time Xia Changfeng had participated in the competition since the golden battle armor. Furthermore, he immediately increased the price by 10 million. That kind of money-spending style was quite shocking. Although Long Chen was attracted to that battle skill, he knew that it was impossible for him to obtain it. Xia Changfeng's 30 million bid was nothing. It was just the beginning. 50 million. An aged voice came from inside another private room. That guest in that room had never revealed himself to the crowd, so no one knew who was inside. Long Chen realized that that old man had probably come here expressly for that battle skill. Perhaps now was the time that all the hidden tigers participating in the auction would now reveal themselves to compete. 60 million. This time the voice was extremely sharp and uncomfortable to listen to, like the sound of metal scraping against metal. It came from a bearded, middle-aged man in the corner of the crowd. 80 million. This time it was the soft feminine voice of Ying Ho. Now the crowd was extremely quiet. Other than Xia Changfeng, the mysterious elder, the bearded man, and Ying Ho, no one else had enough money to compete against such a high price. 100 million. Xia Changfeng took a deep breath and shouted out this price. Long Chen sighed in admiration. The Huayun Pavilion truly had a shocking amount of wealth. Just a copied, handwritten Earth-class battle skill could be sold for over 100 million. What was even more shocking to think about was that they could copy it countless times and auction it over and over at different places. As for the people who managed to obtain it in the end, they would all hide it away deeply so no one else could take it from them. Maybe they would even kill anyone who knew about it. This caused Long Chen to become more and more interested in just who was the secret support of the Huayun Pavilion. Whatever the origin of that support was, it even allowed them to take out such a precious item without being afraid of others attacking in greed. Xia Changfeng's 100 million bid might be shocking, but it was immediately followed up. 110 million. This time it was the mysterious elder in the private room. Considering that he had refused to show himself up till this point, it seemed he would not easily give up on obtaining this battle skill. 130 million. That bearded man was also unwilling to appear weak. Considering the current point in the auction, only bids by increments of 10 million were worth anything. The rest of the crowd was completely silent. Only the astronomical bids continued to ring throughout the room. 150 million. 160 million. 180 million. Such high numbers actually tested a person's mental fortitude. Although it wasn't their money, when Fatty Yu and the others heard them, it made it hard for them to breathe. Sweat was dripping of Xia Changfeng's forehead. He had managed to learn through a secret back channel that the auction this time would have an Earth-class battle skill. Thus he had brought all the money he had to increase his credit limit. But in total he only had 200 million. Since the price was already at 180 million, it seemed that his 200 million wouldn't be enough. Baiqi, how much more credit do you have? He asked of Xia Baiqi. Looking at her crystal card, she replied, I still have 360 million. Xia Changfeng was overjoyed. Good sister, your brother's money won't be enough soon. Lend me some money and I'll return it when we get back to the Grand Xia. Xia Baiqi hesitated for a moment before saying, I can lend it to you, but you must hand over Long Chen's head to me within a short time. Xia Changfeng immediately felt awkward. Chu Yang was right there. To talk about murder in front of the crown prince was definitely excessive. Baiqi, we'll talk about this when we get back. No, if you don't promise me, then I won't lend you any money. Xia Baiqi coldly snorted. She didn't give her older brother any face. Chu Yang smiled slightly. This Long Chen is dislikable, and in case, you'll be my younger sister's husband soon, so I won't hear anything you're saying now. Hearing Chu Yang say such a thing, Xia Changfeng became much more at ease and he cupped his fists at Chu Yang. Many thanks, future brother-in-law. Okay, Xia Baiqi, I promise you. Give me your crystal card. Only then did she hand him her crystal card. Drawing a line over his crystal card, Xia Baiqi's credit limit was transferred over to his card. Now he had a credit of over 500 million. 300 million. Seeing that the price was continuing to climb, Xia Changfeng directly raised the price greatly in order to display it was a must-have for him and hopefully intimidating his competitors away. The others became somewhat taciturn after that high price. Although an Earth-class battle skill was extremely rare, it still was something buyable with money. Furthermore, the price for one was much lower than 300 million. After all, Most Earth-class battle skills that were sold were all second-hand copies. The Earth-class battle skill auctioned by the Huayun Pavilion was one that didn't exist in the region. That was why its price was so high. But a price of 300 million truly was intimidating. After all, if you had enough gold, you could travel to somewhere far away enough and then you would be able to buy Earth-class battle skills for a much lower price. Now the mysterious elder, the bearded man, and Ing Ho were all hesitating. Prince Xia Changfeng bids 300 million. Are there any higher bids? 300 million going once, 300 million going twice. Yao Niqian's voice was a bit excited as she started to count time. It could be said that the profit from this auction had already surpassed her expectations. That was especially the case for this Earth-class battle skill. The 300 million bid was extremely exciting for her. 300 million should be the ceiling price for battle skill, thus she decided to start counting down. 400 million. What no one expected was for a lazy voice to suddenly ring out. That voice was extremely young. It was Long Chen's voice. The entire crowd was stupefied, and even Yao Niqian was shocked. She had yet to even react when a small earring on her ear shook slightly. She immediately recovered and smiled. That bastard! Xia Changfeng flew into a rage. Just as he had been about to obtain the Earth-class battle skill, Long Chen suddenly interfered. Long Chen, I don't believe a bastard like you has that much money. You're just looking for trouble, angrily shouted Xia Changfeng. Idiot, if I didn't have enough money, would I bid? Don't forget, this master is a pill apprentice, replied Long Chen. In reality, Long Chen had constantly been using his divine sense to keep track of his surroundings. Their two private rooms were only a couple dozen meters away from each other. Although there was no way to hear what they were saying, by examining their lips, he was able to figure out the approximate details of what they were discussing. Seeing Xia Changfeng treat this Earth-class battle skill as a must-have, he had decided to shout out a higher bid. Although he appeared at ease on the outside, inside he was still extremely nervous. If he scared Xia Changfeng off, then it would be him who had to pay the final bill. 400 million was something that an ordinary pill apprentice wouldn't be able to pay back even if they spent their entire life refining. But recalling how Xia Baiqi had interfered with him and made him pay 20 million to obtain the star-fusing grass, it would be depressing for him to let that go without revenge. 500 million. If you have the guts, then try to bid again, angrily roared Xia Changfeng. He was about to go mad with rage. He had no idea how Long Chen had obtained so much money. But according to the Huayun Pavilion's rules, if someone shouted out a bid higher than their crystal card's limit, they would be seen as making trouble and expelled. Seeing that nothing happened after Long Chen had made his bid, his only conclusion was that Long Chen really did have that much money. Xia Changfeng's angry roar echoed throughout the room like a beast's howl, shaking people's eardrums. Don't be so excited. I only had a little left on my card. If you had just added 10,000 then you would have won. I rarely admire someone, but I definitely admire Prince Xia Changfeng. To use 100 million as just 10,000, you really are amazing. Long Chen's voice was filled with admiration, but in Xia Changfeng's ears, it turned into the most malicious taunt. You! Xia Changfeng suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood due to this intense anger. Startled cries came from his private room. The crowd's expression was somewhat strange now. For a moment, no one knew whether Long Chen had been speaking the truth or whether he had been deliberating provoking Xia Changfeng. Since no one else is bidding, congratulations Prince Xia Changfeng. The Earth-class battle skill is yours. Yao Niqian skipped right past counting down because she was certain no one would be as foolish as Xia Changfeng. Seeing that the Earth-class battle skill had already been auctioned off, everyone started to get up and prepare to leave. But just at this moment, Yao Niqian's charming laughter rang out. In the past, the auction would end with the Earth-class battle skill, but this year we have an even more unusual item for the end. Everyone was shocked. What could be more precious than an Earth-class battle skill? They all hastily sat back down and stared closely at the stage. Long Chen smiled. Hee, a good show was about to start. Chapter 60 Shocking Methods. Bang! Yao Niqian banged her gavel. The red curtain behind slowly opened, revealing a jade platform. That jade shined brightly. It was actually entirely made from an extremely rare Lantian jade. Lantian jade was exceptionally rare in the Phoenix Cry Empire. Only people with extremely high status could wear Lantian jade as accessories to display their grandeur. But now they saw an entire platform similar to a table that was made of it. Just that platform alone had to be worth millions. Atop that perfect white jade was a golden embroidered case which immediately drew everyone's gaze. Long Chen couldn't help feeling admiration at how grand their methods were. The Huayun Pavilion actually used a table worth millions to show off a single item. If he hadn't known about this before, he would also be extremely curious. No wonder Fu Gue had been so confident back then when he had told Long Chen that the pavilion would go 50-50 with him on the final price. It appeared they really did have the confidence to demand such an amount. They immediately grabbed hold of everyone's attention. Everyone was completely focused on that golden case. Yao Niqian smiled and slowly opened the case in front of their eyes, taking out something small from within. But people almost coughed up blood when they saw that it was just another small case inside the first case. Was there a point to this anticipation? She carefully took out that small case. A maid hastily came forward and gave her a snow-white glove. Putting on the glove, Yao Niqian carefully opened the smaller case. Her cautiousness caused practically everyone to hold their breath, and it was so quiet that even the drop of a needle could be heard. A soft sigh escaped from the small case as it was opened. Following the opening of the case, projections appeared on the walls throughout the hall. All the walls became real-time projections of Yao Niqian's hand. Through those projections, people could clearly see that what was inside that small case was a round medicinal pill. The medicinal pill had a slight ancient aura. When Long Chen first saw that, he actually thought it was a mistake. But sweeping over his divine sense, he immediately understood what was going on and practically prostrated himself to the Huayun Pavilion in admiration. This medicinal pill is something that a small group of adventurers found within an ancient cave after fending off great danger. But that cave had many traps, and just for this medicinal pill, their 10-man group was almost exterminated. Only 2 of them managed to survive. As for the 2 survivors, one of them died shortly. Such a tragic story is truly sorrowful. Every adventurer is worthy of respect. They risked their own lives to scout out that extremely unknown area. They are true warriors. Yao Niqian's voice was somewhat subdued. Her eyes were red and tears bubbled up. Long Chen had been drinking tea when he saw that. He almost spit out that tea in shock. Wasn't this act of hers a little too much? That was the medicinal pill that he had given them. Of course, Long Chen had repeatedly warned them that they were not allowed to leak that the medicinal pill had been his. If they did, then he wouldn't sell it. And now it seemed the Huayun Pavilion truly did keep their word. They had actually made up such a story and had done something to the other layer of the medicinal pill. Now the medicinal pill appeared extremely ancient, and their technique was so perfect that even Long Chen was unable to tell it was fake. It appeared the Huayun Pavilion truly had many experts. What is this medicinal pill? The people present were all powerful figures in their own rights. They naturally wouldn't care about the deaths of some adventurers. What they wanted to know about was this thing's price and effect. Yao Niqian wiped her eyes. Who knew whether or not she had even been actually crying, but she quickly recovered to normal and said, "This medicinal pill is a pill from ancient times." An ancient pill? Everyone present was extremely startled. Those ancient pills weren't necessarily medicinal pills refined in the ancient era, but more accurately they were from pill formulas that were passed around from the ancient times. Most such ancient pills had already disappeared. However, they were extremely attractive to alchemists. If an alchemist could use the medicinal pill to extrapolate the pill formula, that would be equivalent to a new start for a lost inheritance, and that alchemist's name would ring throughout the land. Although this is an ancient pill, its age definitely does not surpass 100 years. Everyone should be aware that a medicinal pill's effect and strength will not fade as long as it is less than 200 years old. Therefore, this medicinal pill will still have 100% effect, continued Yao Niqian. Miss Yao, don't keep us in suspense. Tell us the name of the medicinal pill. And tell us the effect as well. Seeing that Yao Niqian still refused to tell them the important part, someone finally ran out of patience. Seeing that everyone was sufficiently enticed, Yao Niqian smiled and said, "This medicinal pill has gone through our appraising master. Its name is the Flesh Bone Restoration Pill. Now that you've heard its name, I'm sure everyone should know what its effect is." Sighs of displeasure immediately followed. What, just that little effect? A healing pill? Isn't that too ordinary? Yao Niqian seemed to not notice their confusion, continuing, "I'm sure everyone knows my Huayun Pavilion's reputation. We naturally wouldn't make a joke of ourselves. If this flesh-bone restoration pill really wasn't valuable, then we wouldn't have brought it out as the final and most precious item." Hearing that, the crowd quieted down. She wasn't wrong. The Huayun Pavilion definitely wouldn't disrespect their own brand. Then did that mean the medicinal pill had some sort of special use? If I could be so bold, I'd like to invite a blood condensation expert onto the stage to bear witness to the medicinal pill's effect. Yao Niqian smiled at the crowd. "I'll go." Yao Niqian's charm went without saying. A man in his 30s immediately volunteered. Everyone felt this was rather strange. In all the previous auctions of the Huayun Pavilion, it seemed this was the first time anyone had been invited onto the auction stage. That man walked up to the stage. Due to the proximity with Yao Niqian and with how revealing her chest was, he couldn't help staring fixedly. Yao Niqian smiled slightly and didn't bother what that. She playfully asked, "Is Master afraid of pain?" "Hey, don't joke. I, Zhao Yang, have roamed the lands for so many. It's offensive to ask me that." That man was a bit depressed now. Long Chen in his private room laughed at that. Zhao Yang? Zhao Yang? His name really was appropriate, as a tragedy was about to befall him. In that case, Niqian will apologize in advance. Suddenly a cold light flashed. A sword had appeared in Yao Niqian's hand and she slashed it down too quickly to react. Blood splattered in front of everyone's shocked eyes. Zhao Yang's arm had been cut off at the elbow by Yao Niqian. That man hadn't even had time to defend himself. With one of his arms cut off, he was about to angrily say something when a sword was pressed up against his throat, not letting him say anything. Everyone was completely shocked. Yao Niqian had always been acting so weak and delicate, and yet her attack just now had been exceptionally smooth. She was definitely an expert. Sir has already said that he isn't afraid of pain. Yao Niqian handed him the flesh-bone restoration pill. Zhao Yang was scared witless. He swallowed the pill without even thinking about it. "What?" Startled cries rang out as soon as he swallowed it. Almost everyone stood up to get a better look. Only then did Zhao Yang realize something was happening. Looking at his arm, he was shocked to see it miraculously growing back. In just the time for an incense stick to burn, his arm had completely grown back. Flexing his fingers, he was shocked to find that it was completely fine without the slightest feeling of unfamiliarity. He was absolutely shocked. It wasn't for the blood-stained stage and his severed arm on the ground, he would have thought he was hallucinating. "Damn, how could you waste such a precious medicinal pill like that?" An old man had stood up, panting with rage. His eyes were practically spitting flames as he cursed at Yao Niqian. Other people also agreed with him. That medicinal pill was practically a divine pill. For it to just disappear like that enraged everyone. "Miss Yao, are you trying to play us? Give us a clear explanation." Some people were unable to hold back their anger. As for Zhao Yang, he listlessly returned back to his own seat. Even now he couldn't believe what had just happened. Occasionally he would rub his hand over and over. Yao Niqian looked at the angered crowd and smiled. It seemed this result was even better than what she had expected. "Everyone, please calm down. Let me say it again, my Huayun Pavilion will not make jokes with our reputation." Banging the gavel, she caused everyone in the crowd to quickly quiet down. But it wasn't because of her banging the gavel, but because a maid had come up behind Yao Niqian with an embroidered case. "Everyone, Altogether we had 2 such flesh-bone restoration pills. But everyone should know that such a shocking effect is something that no one would believe even if I told you. So I could only show you. Please forgive me. The crowd calmed quite a bit after hearing that explanation. It was true, if they hadn't personally witnessed it, no one would believe that this world had a miraculous medicinal pill like that. Even having personally witnessed its effect, there were still many who still didn't dare believe their own eyes. Several people even went up to Zhao Yang to examine his arm. But that arm was clearly a new arm that had regenerated. There was no way it was fake. Plus, with the Huayun Pavilion's reputation, there was no way they would do something like selling fakes. But that pill was just too shocking. People had to be cautious about it. Long Chen nodded. These crafty and scrupulous business dealers had truly perfected their art. Yao Niqian opened the case, revealing a flesh-bone restoration pill exactly the same as the last. Flesh-bone restoration pill, a second-tier medicinal pill. I won't say any more about its effect, but I want to remind everyone that this medicinal pill is only effective in the blood condensation realm and below. We originally had 2 pills, but now after showing off its effect to everyone, this last one is completely unique. Starting bid, 100 million. As soon as she finished speaking, a huge uproar exploded. Chapter 61 Striking Back. 200 million. A blood condensation expert was the first to shout out a bid. He hadn't gained anything today due to the bidding being so fierce. Due to the prices steadily climbing, the final prices had already exceeded their market value. Thus he hadn't spent anything, which was currently his greatest advantage now. 300 million. An aged voice came from a white-haired old man in the corner. That old man had never made a bid the whole time. But as soon as he spoke, everyone immediately recognized him. Isn't that the Tuoji Empire's Grandmaster Alchemist, Wang Liang? Although the Tuoji Empire wasn't as large as the Phoenix Cry Empire and didn't have an alchemist guild, it had its own alchemy hall. If a nation didn't have the support of medicinal pills or martial weapons, it would eventually be destroyed. And martial weapons came second. After all, iron was never in short supply. However, medicinal pills definitely could not be lacking. That alchemist Wang Liang was essentially the master of the Tuoji Empire. His status was even greater than the emperor. There was no way around that. Without the support of an alchemist, the Tuoji Empire would sooner or later be swallowed by one of the large neighbors. That was why as soon as Wang Liang bid, it immediately scared off many people. That was because he was equivalent to an emperor. His financial resources were incredible. The reason he had never bid before was because he hadn't seen anything that interested him. A person like him wouldn't easily take action, but once he did, it would be a sure win. An ordinary second-tier middle-grade medicinal pill sold for 300,000 to 400,000. But now the price had multiplied by 1,000, meaning few could participate. Such a treasure was one that could only be found by luck. If someone lost an arm during battle, then their combat ability would definitely sharply drop and they would eventually be killed. But the flesh-bone restoration pill was equivalent to a life-saving treasure. Xia Changfeng and Xia Baiqi were incredibly regretful that they hadn't prepared more money and could only watch as this treasure was purchased by someone else. 400 million. Ing Ho's distinctive voice rang out. No one had expected that he would also participate. 500 million. Wang Liang didn't hesitate at all and immediately bid higher. That was his confidence. Although Ing Ho was a noble, his financial resources were not as profound as Wang Liang, who controlled a nation. The entire crowd was stunned to find that an insignificant middle-grade second-tier medicinal pill was actually being sold at the same price as an Earth-class battle skill. Even Long Chen felt his heart jumping wildly. It appeared this world had lost many pill formulas. Those ancient pill formulas in his pill god memories were equivalent to an endless treasure trove. But he also felt a bit of worry. Just a flesh-bone restoration pill could cause this much of an uproar. If others were to learn that this medicinal pill had come from him, that would definitely be dangerous for him. Perhaps he had been too reckless this time. But since it was already like this, regret was useless. Now he could only hope that the Huayun Pavilion's reputation would protect this secret. The entire crowd had turned silent after Wang Luyang's bid of 500 million. Even Ing Ho had become silent. It appeared 500 million was a price even he couldn't bear. Now that the auction had reached this point, there was no need for Yao Niqian to fan the flames of people's passions. That would only cause people to feel disgusted. Seeing that no one else was bidding, Yao Niqian started to count down. In the end, Wang Luyang's high bid won the middle-grade second-tier flesh bone restoration pill. Everyone, don't be a hurry to leave. The show has yet to end. Seeing that everyone was already preparing to get up, Yao Niqian smiled and received a jade case from another maid's. Everyone's expressions became a bit strange. The auction this year truly was full of interesting surprises. What was this next treasure that was even more precious than that pill? Opening the jade case, Yao Niqian revealed a medicinal pill that stunned everyone. That was clearly the exact same as the flesh-bone restoration pill from before. Didn't they say that it was one of a kind? Were they purposely playing with them? When Wang Luyang saw that pill, he immediately stood up. Everyone was expecting him to fly into a rage. But what no one expected was that he only foolishly looked at it for a moment before laughing. Good, this time I didn't come for nothing. Yao Niqian smiled and admiringly said, truly worthy of being an alchemist grandmaster. You can tell from that far away. Yes, this is also a flesh-bone restoration pill. However, this one is not middle grade. Instead, it is high grade. What? Yes, this is a high-grade ancient pill. The middle-grade pill was only useful in the blood condensation realm and below. But this precious high-grade pill is effective even to muscle rebirth experts, solemnly explained Yao Niqian. A storm erupted in the crowd. Muscle rebirth experts? That was the peak of the Phoenix Cry Empire. High-grade flesh-bone restoration pill. Starting bid, 200 million. 500 million. The first person to shout was actually Wang Liang. Moreover, he immediately raised the bidding price, clearly not wishing to take it slowly and displaying that his determination to obtain it. Everyone sighed about how alchemists truly were rich. 600 million. Ing Ho bid shortly after Wang Liang. Everyone anticipated seeing the competition between the two of them. Brother Chu Yang, do you think Ing Ho can beat Wang Liang? Asked Xia Changfeng. This time the medicinal pill is a must-have for Ing Ho. Even if he had to spend his entire fortune, he would still bid, sighed the crown prince. Why is that? Xia Changfeng was a bit puzzled. It didn't seem that just a medicinal pill could be so coveted. Brother Xia must not know about this. A dozen years ago, Ing Ho fought with an opponent, and in an effort to defeat him, he ended up losing a finger. Back then he refused to seek treatment due to his pride. He wanted to use that event to motivate him to cultivate harder. So from that point onwards, he started to train crazily, eventually finally breaking through and entering the muscle rebirth realm. But after entering the muscle rebirth realm, he realized that training in the muscle rebirth realm required you to refine muscle and marrow. Having lost a finger, he had lost a portion of his muscle. It had an enormous impact on his cultivation. But due to how long his finger had been severed, there was no way to fix it. He has spent several years roaming throughout nations without finding a way to heal it. The reason he let Wang Liang win last time was because that was just been a middle-grade flesh-bone restoration pill. It was only useful to blood condensation cultivators. If he had used it, the chances of it helping him recover were extremely remote. Spending 500 million on just a small chance really was a bit too much, thus he let it go. But now this high-grade flesh-bone restoration pill is practically godsend. So I can practically guarantee that he will obtain it. If that Wang Liang refuses to give way, hee. Chu Yang coldly laughed and didn't continue. But it was extremely obvious that if Wang Liang refused to be tactful, it would be extremely difficult for him to be able to leave the Phoenix Cry Empire. Even if he was the ruler of a nation, that nation wasn't comparable to the Phoenix Cry Empire. Ing Ho wouldn't mind killing someone for his treasures. Xia Changfeng and Xia Baiqi nodded. Alchemists were all exceedingly arrogant. Perhaps the competition between the two of them would extend past just this auction. Wang Liyang's expression changed when he saw Ing Ho. He knew that Ing Ho probably viewed this pill as a must-have. But getting him to give up instead was impossible. With a high-grade flesh-bone restoration pill, his chances of figuring out the corresponding pill formula would skyrocket. And once he figured out the pill formula, his name would shake the heavens. And furthermore, alchemists did not lack money. Of course, that was excepting beginners who failed their refinements so often that they often bankrupted themselves. Just as Wang Liyang was about to bid, Ing Ho's soft voice rang out, "Grandmaster Wang, this medicinal pill is of exceedingly great importance to me. Please yield to me. I can even give Grandmaster several days to study it after I obtain it. Harming the relationship of our two nations for just a small medicinal pill really isn't suitable." This truly dazed the crowd. Ing Ho was using both the carrot and the stick to force Wang Liang to give up. It seemed this medicinal pill truly was exceptionally important to him. Yao Niqian's expression became a bit ugly though. This was clearly disrupting the auction, but both Ing Ho and Wang Liang had high statuses and were their customers. If she were to reprimand these two, not only would it not change anything, but the chances of them continuing to compete were no longer great. Furthermore, punishing the two of them would definitely have a negative effect on the Huayun Pavilion's reputation. Yao Niqian truly started to hate that feminine voice of Ing Ho's. Ing Ho must be joking. This old man wants to compete, but unfortunately I have no more money. Wang Liang laughed lightly. The conclusion was a boring disappointment. Just what kind of person was Wang Liang? No more money? This was clearly his way of giving face to Ing Ho and getting out of an awkward situation. Although Yao Niqian was extremely angered, her face still maintained that perfect smile of hers. Now that the auction was nearing its end, she didn't want to cause a huge fuss. Master Ing Ho bids 500 million. Are there any higher bids? 500 million going once. 500 million going twice. 500 million going dash. Ing Ho had already relaxed inside his private room. Hearing the helplessness in Yao Niqian's voice, he coldly smiled. This kind of feeling was his favorite. But a lazy voice caused his expression to immediately change. Even the tea in his hands spilled out. 600 million. Borntoad's thoughts. I've changed the name of the previous Earth-class battle skill to 3-style Parting Wind. The skill doesn't appear in this chapter, but I just wanted to bring it up for the future if it ever becomes relevant. Chapter 62 End of the Auction. 600 million. That voice was extremely young and lazy. Everyone turned their heads to look at the private room it had come from. When they saw it was Long Chen's private room, a strange expression appeared on several people. Back when Long Chen had been about to obtain the star-fusing grass, Ing Ho had purposely said some things that had incited Xia Baiqi to fight with him over it. Now from Long Chen's words, it appeared he was looking for some revenge. Several people were praising Long Chen inside. There were few people in the entire Phoenix Cry Empire who would dare compete with Ing Ho. Ing Ho's face darkened. He hadn't expected that Long Chen, who had been silent for so long, would suddenly take this chance to look for trouble with him. 700 million. But at this point, he couldn't cower. That medicinal pill was something he absolutely had to obtain no matter the price. Otherwise, with his status, there was no way that he would thicken his face to plead with Wang Liang. That medicinal pill was just that important to him. A pleased smile appeared on Long Chen's face. Now he could take revenge on Ing Ho for what he had done to him just before. He couldn't help feeling fresh and brighter inside. He had always been using divine sense to pay attention to Xia Changfeng's private room, having learned from them that Ing Ho treated this flesh-bone restoration pill as a must-have. If he didn't go get some vengeance, then he wouldn't be Long Chen. Although he knew offending Ing Ho was unwise, he didn't worry too much about that. First he'd relieve some of his anger. He didn't believe that Ing Ho would actually go overboard against him for such a thing. With the Alchemist Guild behind him as a support, he had the confidence to provoke Ing Ho. 800 million. The Huayun Pavilion didn't send any warnings to him despite his high bids. Yao Niqian was actually excited inside. However, she hid her emotions extremely well. Master Longchen bids 800 million. Are there any higher bids? If not, then this high-grade flesh bone restoration pill will be handed to him, announced Yao Niqian. Wait a moment, I doubt that Longchen actually has that much money. He's just making empty bids. Ing Ho's feminine voice now held a trace of anger. Although he had suppressed, people could still hear the fury in his voice. Is Senior Ing Ho questioning our integrity? Yao Niqian's smile immediately receded and she angrily said, Young Master Longchen is Grandmaster Yun Qi's student. Everyone in the Phoenix Cry Empire knows this. Before the auction, Grandmaster Yun Qi transferred all his credit to young Master Longchen. Does Senior Ing Ho still think that young Master Longchen is making empty bids? Yao Niqian's words were rather blunt and impolite. Obviously, Ing Ho had truly angered her by breaking the rules. Now that she had the opportunity, she would naturally relieve some of her anger. She was a woman, and a woman knew how to hold grudges. Once you angered them, they would no longer be that gentle and soft. Everyone gasped when they learned that Grandmaster Yun Qi had transferred his credit to Longchen. That meant Longchen had the true support of the entire Alchemist Guild. That kind of guarantee meant Longchen could reserve anything he wanted. Who dared to say he had no money? But even Longchen was dazed. How come he hadn't known about this? But he quickly realized that Ing Ho's actions had angered the Huayun Pavilion. They were supporting him in order to give Ing Ho a slap in the face. Ing Ho's expression was extremely ugly now. If what Yao Niqian had said was true, then he really wouldn't be able to compete against Longchen in terms of financial resources. 1 billion. Ing Ho pushed down his anger and raised the bid by a whole 200 million. 1 billion gold coins. Just to buy a second-tier medicinal pill. That was definitely unprecedented. With Ing Ho's financial ability, 1 billion gold coins was already several years' worth of savings. Brother Long, how about you don't bid again? It's already quite frightening. Shou Ho was quietly shivering. Back when Longchen had bid, they had all been completely shocked. A simple opening of his mouth was equivalent to 100 million gold. Even if it wasn't their money, it was still breathtaking. But Longchen only smiled something. He was highly suspicious that Ing Ho was the one who had stolen his cultivation ability. Now it was just him getting back some interest. 1,500 million. Immediately after Shou Ho finished, Longchen raised the bid, almost scaring Shou Ho to the point of fainting. Ing Ho had just raised the price by 200 million all at once. But now Longchen was even more vicious, directly raising the price by 500 million. He was clearly using Yun Qi's money to suppress Ing Ho. The crowd was completely silent. Even Wang Luyang was flabbergasted. That price had long since exceeded his expectations. Although he only had a middle-grade flesh-bone recovery pill and it wasn't inferior to the high-grade pill, there was still a large chance of him being able to figure out the pill formula from studying it. Therefore, he had also given up at this time. The teacup in Ing Ho's hand was crushed, and even the tea that splashed onto his body was completely unnoticed by him. Blue veins were pulsing on his forehead. If he didn't know that the Huayun Pavilion had a powerful backer, he would have already charged out to go kill Longchen. Longchen, you want to obtain this pill that badly? Coldly asked Ing Ho. Longchen laughed. He could tell that Ing Ho had spit these words out through clenched teeth. In other words, he was exceptionally enraged, probably even more enraged than Longchen had been when trying to obtain the star-fusing grass. Well, actually this thing is pretty much useless to me, indifferently said Longchen. Then you're purposely making an enemy of me? Raged Ing Ho. You can't put it that way. I have several reasons for wanting to obtain this thing. Reason number 1 is that it's an ancient pill. Even if I have to pay a high price for it, it's still worth it. If I bring it back to my teacher, he also wouldn't scold me. In fact, he might even praise me. Reason number 2 is that you pissed me off just now. My temperament is a bit strange. I can take anything, but I can't take a lose like that. Reason number 3 is that just like you, my father is also one of the 3 great supports of this Phoenix Cry Empire. He spends his days guarding the wild border, fighting against enemies constantly, completing heroic contributions. But my family became penniless, unable to even keep a dozen servants. But you, In-ho, who are on the same level as my father, who lazes his days in the imperial palace, actually has this much money. So I was curious just how big the difference between us was. Just how rich is Senior In-ho? Just how many times more money does he have than my Long family? Smiled Long Chen. The majority of the people present were members of the Phoenix Cry Empire. Although Long Chen had been laughing as he said those things, everyone could hear his resentment. So you want to fight with me till the end? Lightly asked In-ho as he looked down at his broken teacup, killing intent surfacing in his eyes. Not really. Maybe if you increase the price again you'll win, or maybe if some people are able to tactfully display their own apologies, then my Long family will consider it and withdraw from this competition, said Long Chen. Fine, a tiger father truly has a tiger son. The younger generation truly does surpass the old one. I admit defeat today. Allow me to shamelessly make one last bid, 1,501,000,000, laughed In-ho. Everyone was stupefied, never expecting that Long Chen would actually be able to force In-ho to bow his head. In-ho's admittance of defeat already said everything. Long Chen smiled slightly. It appeared he had already reached In-ho's bottom line. His adding of a paltry 1 million obviously meant that if Long Chen were to make another bid he would give up. But if he did give up, he would not hold back from taking extreme measures. Long Chen knew when to quit while he was ahead, and so he didn't increase the bid again. Today already counted as his victory. An expert on the same level as his father was pushed into defeat by him. Moreover, he had also managed to release some of his anger in this grand setting. But his actually strength still wasn't enough. He couldn't force In-ho too far, otherwise if In-ho was truly angered, he would make him disappear without leaving behind a single trace. Even the Alchemist Guild wouldn't be able to investigate it. And even if they did investigate at that time, he would already be dead, so there was no point. Revenge had to be taken one step at a time. Yao Niqian had returned to her smiling self. Seeing that no one else was competing, she began to count down. Finally In-ho had his wish fulfilled and obtained the flesh-bone restoration pill. Confetti suddenly started to rain down and music began to play. A dozen colorful young maidens danced gracefully. Yao Niqian gave a gracious thanks to everyone for participating. This time's Huayun Pavilion's auction had finally ended. The guests slowly started to leave. Long Chen wasn't in a rush. He waited till most of the crowd had left before exiting his private room. But as soon as he walked out, he ended up running into several people. Those people were precisely Xia Changfeng, Chu Yang, and Xia Baiqi. Long Chen, don't think you can be arrogant just because of Yun Qi's support. The Empress Dowager has already decided to give the third princess to my brother. In the future she will be brother's woman, so a lowly peasant like you should stop having any intentions about her, sneered Xia Baiqi. Oh, aren't you that woman who was sharing a bed with your master? Now that your master has left, don't you need to go attend to him? Before Long Chen even had a chance to say anything, Shouho had already retorted. Having muddled along with Long Chen for so long, he had become much more confident. He wouldn't be able to feel at peace without causing a bit of trouble. Xia Baiqi's expression changed. Shouho's words were a vicious slap in the face for her. Back on that day, Xia Baiqi had gone crazy and admitted to some scandalous affairs in front of many people. However, no one dared comment on it to her face. In the end, she had actually ended up fooling herself into thinking that they hadn't hurt her due to how far the crowd had been. You're asking for it. Xia Baiqi had just been about to charge over when Xia Changfeng pulled her back. After all, this was the Huayun Pavilion's territory, and fighting was prohibited. Long Chen, it is already set in stone that Chu Yao will be my woman. Don't have any fanciful thoughts. I am the Grand Xia's prince, while you are just a noble heir. Our statuses are far too different, indifferently said Xia Changfeng. Long Chen seemed to not even hear what he said. He knew the reason they had come over was to provoke him. He had long since heard this news, so that provocation was unable to hurt him. Long Chen suddenly saw one of the guards behind the crown prince and said, I seem to have seen you before? That guard smiled slightly. I am the Crown Prince's guard, so it's normal for you to have seen me. No, I think I've seen you in a very particular place. For example, near the martial arena. Long Chen looked closely at him. That guard didn't reply, merely looking back at Long Chen. Long Chen smiled slightly and said to Xia Changfeng, "Your face is turning black. A great calamity is about to befall you. Try to be careful." After saying that, he brought his friends out of the Huayan Pavilion. But as soon as he left, Fu Gui ran up to him. "The boss wants to see you." Chapter 63 Huayan Sect. Within a luxurious guest room inside the Huayan Pavilion, Long Chen was sitting with the charming Yao Niqian. He asked, "You're the big boss?" She laughed cutely and replied, "Am I not a big enough boss for you?" Along with her laugh, her chest jiggled. Long Chen had no choice but to admit she was definitely big enough. But he wasn't a man who only wanted a chest. He preferred Meng Qi's tasteful aesthetic, or perhaps Chu Yao's grand well-bred poise. "Why did you want me stay behind?" lightly asked Long Chen. Seeing that Long Chen wasn't affected by her charm, Yao Niqian truly did become a bit irritated. That was truly a blow. She was exceptionally confident in her seductiveness. But just as she was about to say something, another voice rang out. "Niqian, don't make trouble." Another woman walked over. She was around 20 years old. She looked to be exceptionally plain, yet she gave off a very posh feeling. "Oomph, what an insensitive guy. Big sis, I'm leaving. I'll leave him to you." Yao Niqian didn't forget to give a glare to Long Chen before leaving the room. "First of all, I'd like to apologize for so boldly inviting you here. This little one is Bai Ling. Greetings, young Master Long Chen." That woman curtsied slightly. "Miss is too polite." Long Chen also chose to bow slightly. "I know that young Master Long Chen's time is precious, so I'll keep this short. The first reason we invited you over was to discuss the splitting of the profits. The 2 medicinal pills sold for a total of 2,001,000,000 gold coins. This is a sky-high number." Bai Long couldn't help sighing emotionally. Although they had already had a high estimation of those 2 medicinal pills' prices, they had never expected for it to draw such turmoil. And Long Chen himself had also caused several of the auction prices to rise greatly. It could be said that he had helped greatly. "This is your portion." Bai Ling handed him a crystal card. There were 1,000,000,000 gold coins on the card, causing Long Chen to become ecstatic. He would never have to worry about money again. Although he didn't know how the Huayan Pavilion had calculated it, he didn't really care about what was now chump change to him. "Thank you. The one who should be thanking the other is us. With your addition to the auction this time had the absolute greatest profit in all of history," laughed Bai Ling. Long Chen smiled, understanding that the main reason was because of him forcing Ying Ho to pay more. No, without the pavilion's support, I also wouldn't have been able to relieve that resentment." Bai Ling was a bit startled. She laughed. "I think young Master Long Chen has misunderstood a bit. We didn't support you. Grandmaster Yun Qi had told us to take care of you. Whatever you wanted to buy, no matter the price, he said he would pay for it." Grandmaster Yun Qi. Long Chen was extremely moved, never imagining that Grandmaster Yun Qi had secretly helped him. He had obviously been closely paying attention to him. "This time we both benefited from helping each other. With young Master Long Chen's help, our Huayan Pavilion has greatly profited. That was why, to display our thanks, I will give you a gift." A book appeared in her hand. "This is a list of all the treasures in our storehouse. You can take one item." Long Chen was surprised, but he naturally wouldn't refuse such a good thing. Having helped the Huayan Pavilion earn so much money, it was simply right for him to be able to get a reward. Opening the book, he saw there really were quite a few good things. Although they had just completed their yearly auction, there were still countless treasures. Long Chen didn't even bother looking through the battle skills. There were no longer any Earth-class ones left. They only had mortal-class ones, and he no longer needed any on that level. Armor and weapons also didn't suit him. But suddenly his eyes brightened. "Oh, heartrot grass. That was a poisonous grass. If refined into a poison, it would possess an extremely acute toxicity. The poisonous extract that could be refined from the heartrot grass could be applied to arrowheads. Such an arrow would be able to kill even second-rank magical beasts. I'll pick that. Long Chen pointed to the heartrot grass. When Bai Ling saw his selection, she couldn't help being a bit baffled. This heartrot grass does have a high toxicity, but it isn't very valuable. Does young master want to think it over some more? A stalk of heartrot grass was only a couple 100,000 gold coins. Bai Ling had been wanting him to select an extremely precious treasure. After all, Long Chen had helped their Huayun pavilion make a great deal of profit. This was their way of winning favor with him. But he only picked a medicinal grass that was a couple 100,000 gold coins. Naturally, that was awkward for her. I'm not that interested in the other things. This heartrot grass is perfect for me to study a bit, smiled Long Chen. How about you also pick something else? Probed Bai Ling. That wouldn't be too appropriate, would it? Laughed Long Chen. It's not a problem. In the Huayun pavilion, whatever I say counts, confidently said Bai Ling. That was perfect for Long Chen, as he had actually been wondering what other bizarre things they possessed. When he had almost completely flipped through the book's contents, his heart suddenly jumped. Night Devil Skull. Although his expression didn't change, his heart was already starting to pound. This was a true treasure. Can I pick this Night Devil Skull? Asked Long Chen. Of course. Bai Ling smiled. Although the Night Devil Skull was worth over 1,000,000 gold coins, it was not worth making a fuss over. In just a short time, people brought over the heartrot grass and the Night Devil Skull. The heartrot grass was packed into a sealed foot-tall bottle. Although it had been tightly sealed, an extremely acrid smell still came from it. The acrid smell seemed to want to bore through their noses and set their lungs on fire. A bright smile appeared on Long Chen's face when he saw that strand of heartrot grass. It had definitely matured properly and its toxicity was extremely high. As for the Night Devil Skull, it was as tall as a human. It looked like an extremely frightening bat's head. He reached out his hand and placed the heartrot grass and Night Devil Skull into his spatial ring before then thanking Bai Ling. Many thanks. Bai Ling smiled slightly. Young Master Long Chen is too polite. As I said, the first reason we invited you here was to thank you. The other reason was to ask young Master Long Chen if he wished to enter my Huayun sect. Huayun sect? Long Chen was startled. Correct. The Huayun Pavilion is just one of my Huayun sect's branch industries, laughed Bai Ling. Does that mean young lady Bai is one of the sect's branch disciples? Asked Long Chen. Bai Ling nodded. Bai Ling isn't talented and is just an outer disciple of the Huayun sect in charge of the Phoenix Cry Empire's Huayun branch pavilion. Long Chen was startled. So this Bai Ling was actually the branch pavilion chief and a branch member of the Huayun sect. Actually, with young master's talent and his attainments with medicinal pills, young master will quickly be able to walk out of these uncivilized, backward lands. This is my 3rd year in the Phoenix Cry Empire. Now with young Master Long Chen's assistance, I've finally completed my target. Now when I return to the sect, I will be promoted to become an inner disciple. Anticipation appeared in her eyes. So to repay this favor, I will shamelessly give you this invitation. If you enter my Huayun sect, you will definitely have the best conditions to grow. Long Chen couldn't help being moved and asking, what do you mean, these uncivilized lands? A young master must not know, but this world is so large it is out of your imagination. The Phoenix Cry Empire is just a drop in the ocean. This region is called uncivilized because it is far from the cultivation world. That was why I said that with your talent, you should go to a more expansive land to grow. Only then will you not be stifled, smiled Bai Ling. But when it came to explaining those more expansive lands, she didn't explain it at all. This was the first time Long Chen had heard of the outer world. Even Grandmaster Yun Qi hadn't raised that subject with him. And even Bai Ling didn't reveal too much. Although Long Chen was curious, he didn't keep questioning her. He laughed. Many thanks for your appreciation. If I ever do leave Phoenix Cry and want to see the outer world, then I will go looking for you. His words were extremely tactful. He didn't agree or decline. Bai Ling sighed. It looks like you don't want to leave Phoenix Cry for now. But I will be returning to the sect immediately. How about this? If you do leave Phoenix Cry and don't find a suitable sect, keep my Huayan sect in mind. Here, this is my symbol. With it you can come to the Huayan sect to find me. Receiving a jade tablet from Bai Ling, Long Chen said, then I'll thank young miss for her help. To tell the truth, I really am interested in that vast and expansive sky that you were talking about. Unfortunately, he had too many troubles that he had to resolve. And there was no way Bai Ling could wait for him, as this was a crucial moment for her to promote from an outer disciple to an inner disciple. Although he didn't know exactly how different the two were, he could tell that it was extremely important to her since she couldn't conceal her excitement. As soon as Long Chen left, a side door opened and Yao Niqin walked in. She was confused and said, "This Long Chen actually refused my sister's invitation." A refusal is normal. This Long Chen is definitely not as simple as you. He is extremely shrewd. He's definitely contemplating matters that he hasn't revealed, sighed Bai Ling. What a shame. If you could have lured him, a pill cultivator with endless prospects, into our Huayan sect, then you might even be promoted to become a core disciple. How about I go try to charm him again? No harm, right? Said Yao Niqin. Just give it up. Long Chen isn't like those perverts you usually charm. You'd just be disgracing yourself. We still have to finish some preparations. Once we're all set, we'll have to return to the sect. The Huayan Pavilion will be left to another disciple sent here to gain experience, said Bai Ling. Although it was hard for her to accept this, Yao Niqin always trusted what Bai Ling said. She only quietly cursed inside. Was this Long Chen even a man? Achoo! Long Chen had just entered his room when he sneezed. I don't know whether it is Ying Ho or Xia Changfeng who is cursing me. Or is that idiot woman? Although he didn't know who was talking about him, he knew that that person definitely wasn't saying anything good about him. He called over Bauer and repeatedly warned her not to let anyone interrupt him before tightly closing the door. It should be time to refine the star-fusing pill. Chapter 64 Visiting Chu Yao. Boom! His pole furnace violently shook and terrifying energy surged within. It was as if his pill furnace was trying to seal a struggling magical beast. Seal! Long Chen shouted and tightly pushed down in the furnace lid. But a medicinal pill's essence couldn't be sealed just relying on physical strength. At the same time as High Hand pushed down on the lid, his powerful spiritual strength surged out and completely locked down the pill furnace. This intense struggle continued for a full 2 hours before his pill furnace gradually returned to calm. Slowly opening the lid, the originally dark room immediately lit up. A pearl-like medicinal pill was immediately a gentle light. Hee, I finally succeeded. Long Chen relaxed and wiped away his sweat. He was incredibly exhausted and almost fainted. This was the third furnace of pills he had refined. The first furnace of pills had been to refine the star-fusing pill Chu Yao needed. Of his 3 refinements, the star-fusing pill had been the easiest to refine. Then he had refined the soul-devouring heart-rotting pill, a poison pill refined from the heart-rot grass. It would be one of his protective measures in the future. The last thing he had refined was the hardest to refine, the soul-nourishing pill. He had refined it by using the night devil skull he had obtained from the Huayan Pavilion. The night devil had a similar shape to a bat. An adult was 12 meters long and fiercely bloodthirsty. Its most terrifying aspect was its ability to use spiritual attacks. To direct attack the spirit, that was a terrifying kind of method that was practically impossible to defend against. Long Chen had used the second-rank magical beast Night Devil Skull's crystal core as the main ingredient to refine a single soul-nourishing pill. The soul-nourishing pill was an exceptionally special medicinal pill. It had practically vanished from this era. Even in his Long Chen's pill god memories, there were only 3 formulas that could nourish the soul. Consuming it would benefit the spirit great, and at the initial stages of soul cultivation, consuming 1 soul-nourishing pill was equivalent to having a huge head start over your competition. This was a rare medicinal pill that had absolutely no side effects. This pill was extremely precious to Long Chen in particular. As an alchemist, he definitely required a powerful spiritual strength. But the first thing that popped into his head when he looked at that pearl-like soul-nourishing pill was a vision of Meng Qi's flawless face. Meng Qi was a beastmaster. That was true soul cultivation. Only by giving it to her would it not count as a waste. But Meng Qi was now in the Wind Spirit Pavilion. He didn't know where that was at the moment, so it would be impossible for him to send it to her. Sighing, he put away the soul-nourishing pill. If he still didn't see Meng Qi again within half a year, then he would simply consume it himself. That was because the soul-nourishing pill was not like other medicinal pills. If it wasn't consumed within half a year, the spiritual energy inside the pill would begin to fade. After putting away the medicinal pills, Long Chen could no longer support himself. Exhaustion caused him to collapse onto his bed. The next time he opened his eyes, it was already noon the next day. After washing up, he chatted with his mother, ate lunch, and left, ready to meet up with Chu Feng. He had already set up a meeting with Chu Feng for today at a tea house. By the time Long Chen arrived, Chu Feng had already been waiting for a long time. Chu Feng had a middle-aged guard beside him. When he saw Long Chen approaching, that guard was just about to say something when his vision suddenly darkened and he fainted. After knocking him unconscious, Long Chen took out some face-changing liquid and applied it to his face. In just a couple minutes he had changed into the guard's clothes and left with Chu Feng to the Imperial Palace. Everything was going according to plan. Chu Feng had followed Long Chen's instructions to keep a guard beside him at almost all times. This was all in order to fool people for today. Now Long Chen would no longer appear as conspicuous in other people's eyes. The two of them managed to easily enter into the inner section of the Imperial Palace. This was Long Chen's first time in the Imperial Palace. The winding palace maze completely confused him. Without his powerful spiritual strength, he would have lost his direction. "Brother Long, my big sis is under house arrest in her Jade Yao Palace. There are guards outside. They've never blocked me from entering, but whether or not I can bring you in is still a bit unknown." Chu Feng was hesitant. "Don't worry, let's try our luck. Just follow the contingencies in our plan. If it really isn't going to work then I won't force it," nodded Long Chen. Long Chen had come to deliver Chu Yao the medicinal pill, but he also wanted to help her resolve those foreign spiritual seeds. There was only one star-fusing pill, and refining its medicinal pill's energy required skill. With Long Chen by her side, even if something unexpected happened, he might still be able to remedy the situation. But another reason he had come was because he missed her. Ever since he had revealed his feelings for her at the Lantern Festival, her beautiful image had always been held within his heart. He wanted her to have more faith in him. He wanted her to know that no matter how hard her days were, she would always have Long Chen with her. He wanted her to share a part of her pain. He wanted her to never have to suffer helplessly again. That was why he had come. Finally they arrived at Chu Yao's Princess Jade Yao Palace. There were 8 guards wearing imperial robes guarding the gate. There were also dozens of other soldiers surrounding the perimeter. That truly angered Long Chen. This was the Imperial Palace, which was equivalent to Chu Yao's home. But it was completely surrounded by guards. How was this any different to being imprisoned? Long Chen was becoming increasingly disgusted with the royal family. The Empress Dowager has ordered that outsiders cannot enter the Jade Yao Palace. As expected, Chu Feng and Long Chen were blocked from entering. "Outrageous! I'm here to see my sister. Why can't I enter?" Chu Feng angrily shouted. "Seventh Prince, I'm sorry. You can enter but your guard cannot." That guard was not overly servile or overbearing. "He is my personal guard. He's my most trusted guard, and if you won't believe me then I'll make your head tumble to the floor," sternly shouted Chu Feng. That guard shook his head. His voice was as indifferent as ever as he replied, "I'm sorry, these are the Empress Dowager's orders. No one can change them." While Chu Feng and that guard were arguing, Long Chen had already spread out his divine sense. Sensing a figure sitting and leaning against a window, he couldn't help feeling pity. Chu Yao was as beautiful as ever, however she had become much thinner and wan. It was obvious that this constant imprisonment over these days had made her suffer. Long Chen truly wished to punch that guard blocking them, but he didn't dare. This was the imperial palace, and he didn't dare be reckless here. What matter is causing this much ruckus? Suddenly a displeased voice came from behind. Greetings, fourth prince. That was precisely the fourth prince Chu Xia. It seemed he had just happened to be passing by when he heard the commotion. Long Chen frowned slightly when he saw it was the fourth prince. That was because he could see that Chu Xia was looking at him with a bit of surprise. Although he didn't know where he messed up, he was now certain that Chu Xia had recognized him. What's going on? After glancing at Long Chen for a moment, Chu Xia turned to the guards. Reporting to fourth prince, seventh prince wanted to bring this guard into the Jade Yao Palace, but... Impudent! You audacious slave, are you doubting my little brother? You actually think he'd harm his own sister? Suddenly the fourth prince interrupted angrily. This little one doesn't dare. That guard jumped in fear. He hastily kneeled down. Obviously the fourth prince instilled much more fear in him than the seventh prince. Let them in, coldly ordered the fourth prince. But that guard was still hesitant. If the Empress Dowager wants to assign blame, naturally it will fall on me. Could it be that you don't even trust me? Coldly asked the fourth prince. This little one doesn't dare. That guard fell back and no longer said anything. Enter then. The fourth prince patted Chu Feng on the shoulder, but he was clearly looking at Long Chen. Long Chen nodded. Although he didn't know why the fourth prince would help him, now wasn't the time to think about that. After the seventh prince and Long Chen entered the Jade Yao Palace, the fourth prince smiled and also left. Entering the Jade Yao Palace, the two of them entered into the central courtyard. Chu Yao had been leaning against the window and looking down at the fish swimming in the pool when she turned slightly and suddenly saw them. When she saw Long Chen, first she was dazed for a moment before wild joy filled her. Her jade hand lightly covered his cherry lips, and her tears began to wildly fall. She had somehow managed to recognize Long Chen. Long Chen slowly walked up to her and apologized, sorry for being so late. Chu Yao couldn't hold back any longer. With her head in Long Chen's chest, she began to truly weep, seeming to want to cry out all her grief. During this time she had been under constant house arrest. When she heard that the Empress Dowager had already decided to marry her off to Xia Changfeng, she had almost collapsed. If Chu Feng hadn't secretly brought her Long Chen's promise to her, she might have already become hopeless and left this colorless world. Every day she would watch the sun rise and bitterly wait for Long Chen. Each day had felt longer than a year to her. That kind of suffering was something only she knew about. Long Chen enjoyed her fragrance as he gently stroked her long hair, letting her give vent to her grief. At the same time, he also swore to himself that no matter the price, he would definitely protect Chu Yao, even if that price was his life. Sometimes he would even feel that Chu Yao was more pitiful than himself. After all, Long Chen at least had a mother and father who loved him. But Chu Yao had lived her whole life in the loveless imperial palace. The imperial palace was a place where there was no trust or love. For a weak woman like her, it really was too painful. After feeling enough time had paused, Long Chen noticed that Chu Feng was just awkwardly standing in his original location, not knowing whether he should stay or leave. Cough. Long Chen lightly coughed and Chu Yao broke out of her daze and hastily escaped from Long Chen's embrace. Her entire face was red and she couldn't even bring herself to look at either of them. How about I go for now?" probingly asked Chu Feng. "No need. Just help me keep watch for me. I have some secret matters I have to do with your sister." Long Chen waved his hand. But as soon as he saw Chu Feng's shocked expression, he knew that that kid had misunderstood and hastily added, "It's not what you think." He didn't explain further. Not explaining was better as the explanation was even more explicit. Chu Yao's pretty face was completely red and she was too embarrassed to even show her face. Long Chen straightforwardly pulled Chu Yao upstairs, leaving behind a stupefied Chu Feng who just stood there alone and in a daze. Chapter 65 Star-Fusing Pills Qi. The Jade Yao Palace was Chu Yao's personal princess palace. It was large with 3 floors, the 3rd floor being her personal chambers. Long Chen had never once gone into a woman's chambers before. What surprised Long Chen was that Chu Yao's room didn't have any majestic or grand decorations. Instead, everything was very simple and plain. Isn't it strange? Chu Yao pulled Long Chen in and quietly said, "I've always imagined that if only I had been born into a normal family, I would be free. I might not be able to have luxury or have a high status, but at least I would have my freedom." Long Chen smiled. "That's just because of your viewpoint. To be born into poverty is to have to struggle every day. In this world, if you want to be free, then you have to have a matching power." Chu Yao nodded and led Long Chen into her room. Long Chen was startled to see that her bed was covered with drawings of himself. Those drawings weren't made by a master painter. Instead, it was remarkably lifelike, without the embellishment of the drawings of him on the market. "You drew these?" Long Chen asked in surprise. Her face reddened a bit, but she still nodded. "Ever since the Lantern Festival, drawing images of you is the only way I can pass the time. Otherwise, the days are even more unbearable." Long Chen felt a sudden burst of emotion for her. Looking at how much thinner and wan she was, he felt his heart ache. "Chu Yao." Wrapping his arms around her tender waist, he pulled her into a tight kiss. Chu Yao immediately felt the sky and earth spinning around her. Long Chen's masculine scent filled her nose, and it was like sparks were running throughout her body. Tightly hugging onto Long Chen's back, the two of them lost themselves in that intoxicating feeling. "Long Chen, Yao wants to be your woman." Her breathing was shallow and her beautiful eyes were blurry as she looked at Long Chen. The intense feelings she had for him were enough to melt steel. With a beauty in his arms, Long Chen felt as if his whole body was about to ignite. Even his breathing was becoming hurried. With her encouraging him, Long Chen's most primal desires ignited and his hands slowly started roving up from her waist. "Long Chen, I want to be your woman. Even if I die, Yao will be content." Her entire body turned soft as she quietly whispered. Chu Yao's voice was soft, but to Long Chen, the words were like thunder. His originally aroused desire was immediately extinguished like icy water had been thrown over him. When Chu Yao sensed Long Chen's body suddenly stiffen, she slowly opened her eyes and saw that his expression was a bit unnatural. "What's wrong?" He took a deep breath and told himself to stay calm. After gently planting a kiss of her forehead, he said, "Yao, do you not have faith in me?" From her tone and what she said, Long Chen had understood her inner thoughts. She had been planning on ending her life after giving herself to him. And also for some unknown reason, Long Chen had a sudden premonition that if he did go through with that, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Although such a premonition was extremely abstruse, Long Chen had always had a keen intuition ever since merging with a pill god spirit. His gut had never misled him. "Long Chen." Chu Yao looked at Long Chen and suddenly started sobbing into his chest. "I love you, Long Chen. I would rather die than marry someone else." Long Chen gently stroked her back. As expected, his intuition had been correct. Patting her, he said, "Yao, did you forget the promise we made to each other at the Lantern Festival? The dragon swims across the 4 oceans. The phoenix flies throughout the 9 lands," she softly recited. But as soon as she finished, her tears truly began to fall. "Seas of blood may block us, but we will never give up our path. Dragon and phoenix will both live to old age." Long Chen also heavily recited what he had said in return. That was his first promise to Chu Yao. Chu Yao's jade hands tenderly stroked Long Chen's cheeks. She was choked with emotion as she sobbed, "But, can we really live to old age?" "We definitely will. Believe in me." "Okay, I'll trust in my future husband." Chu Yao smiled, appearing like a dew-dropped flower with her tears on her beautiful face. "Yao, You really are beautiful," blurted out Long Chen. "As long as you like how I look then, I'll let you see me every day." This time Chu Yao wasn't shy at all anymore. "Ah, good, we'll have many more days for that. But today I came mostly to bring you this." Long Chen took out the star-fusing pill, immediately causing the light in the room to turn gentle, although it was the middle of the day, that was not able to conceal the light coming from the pill. "Here, consume it. I'll protect you." Although she didn't know what it was, due to her trust in Long Chen, Chu Yao obediently swallowed that star-fusing pill. With Chu Yao sitting lotus-style on the bed, Long Chen placed his hand on the middle of her back, using his spiritual strength to keep a close eye on the state of her body. That star-fusing pill was something Long Chen had used his full effort to refine. It was the best pill he had refined up to this point, and it could already count as a peak existence amongst second-tier medicinal pills. In just a couple breaths' time, the medicinal pill dissolved and spread quickly throughout her body. "Don't bother with it. Let the energy flow as it wishes." The star-fusing pill spread throughout and filled every single one of Chu Yao's meridians. Even some of her meridians which hadn't been opened up yet were slowly forced open by its energy. But such a feeling was not a pleasant one. It felt as if millions of ants were crawling throughout her meridians, causing her to feel an irritating itch. Chu Yao knew that this was something Long Chen had refined for her, so she did her absolute best to hold back any pain sounds, not wanting to worry him. This kind of suffering was something Long Chen was extremely familiar with. Back when he had first absorbed heaven and earth's spiritual energy into his body to open his meridians, he had felt such an intense pain that he would never be able to forget it in this lifetime. Although Chu Yao was much better off than he had been at that time, one was pain while the other was itchiness. The degree of difficulty in bearing with it was essentially equal. It took a full 2 hours for the star-fusing pill's medicinal energy to completely merge into Chu Yao's meridians. Now draw the medicinal energy into your dantian. You have to pull that energy from the farthest parts first, just like how rivers flow into the ocean. Chu Yao nodded and slowly began to circulate her spiritual qi. She began to collect the medicinal energy from her meridians into her dantian. What surprised Long Chen was that Chu Yao's control of her spiritual qi was extremely precise, practically reaching the point where she could control the slightest detail. Chu Yao was definitely a martial genius. Long Chen couldn't help sighing emotionally. Just by using her familiarity to her spiritual qi, she was already able to reach such a high level of control. If those 9 foreign spiritual qis weren't blocking her dantian and caused her spiritual qi to be too chaotic and weak, the result from their fight on Sunset Mountain would probably have been reversed. "Good, now increase the speed. The faster, the better. Channel your energy," quietly directed Long Chen. With the pulling of the medicinal energy in her body, Chu Yao gradually caused the small streams of energy to become large rivers, the energy become greater and greater. Following Long Chen's directions, she increased her speed and now her meridians were pushed to their max, sending the energy to her dantian wildly like surging waves. Boom! Chu Yao's dantian shook and the 9 foreign spiritual energy seeds locking it were immediately pushed to the breaking point by those huge waves. "No, you're still lacking some energy." Long Chen's expression changed slightly. His spiritual strength rushed out, aiding Chu Yao in pulling the star-fusing pill's energy to her dantian. Those waves now became a flood. If it had been just the medicinal energy then it would count as a flood, but then adding in Long Chen's spiritual strength, that flood became a huge torrent. Those 9 foreign spiritual qis that had been nourished by Chu Yao for so many years were immediately crushed into pieces and merged into her dantian. Boom! Following the breaking of those 9 spiritual seeds, Chu Yao's dantian immediately became filled with endless energy. It caused Chu Yao, who was originally at the 9 heaven stage of qi condensation, to immediately break through to the blood condensation realm. First heaven stage of blood condensation. Second heaven stage. Third heaven stage. Her cultivation base rapidly advanced at a shocking pace. Those 9 spiritual seeds had been nourished for so many years. Now that they were crushed, The amount of energy they released was absolutely astonishing. It could also be seen just how terrifying Chu Yao's talent was. Despite not spending much time on cultivating, just the accumulated energy she had gained passively was enough to even scare Long Chen. 5th Heaven Stage. 6th Heaven Stage. Now Long Chen was truly stupefied. Chu Yao's talent was so great that Huang Chang would have been nothing in front of her. 7th Heaven Stage. 8th Heaven Stage. Long Chen's expression changed. He realized that under Chu Yao's rapid advances in her cultivation base, it seemed she was going to break out of the blood condensation realm to reach a higher level. Boom! As he predicted, Chu Yao's cultivation base advanced to the 9th Heaven Stage, and there was still an enormous amount of energy remaining. Crap! Long Chen shouted and immediately activated his Feng Fu Star. He poured extremely pure spiritual qi into Chu Yao's body and tightly sealed her dantian. He spat out a mouthful of blood. In order to avoid hurting Chu Yao, that spiritual qi he had poured into her body was not capable of defending itself from that wild, out-of-control spiritual qi in her body, causing him to suffer a loss. Long Chen. Chu Yao let out an alarmed cry. At this point she had already lost control of her own cultivation base. Not a problem. Just calm yourself. I'll help you control your dantian's energy. You absolutely can't break through again, otherwise your foundation will be practically ruined. Long Chen explained while suppressing her dantian. Chu Yao hastily stabilized her state of mind. Working with Long Chen, they tried to control the energy in her dantian that seemed almost endless. Luckily Chu Yao's control of that energy was extremely great. Knowing that this was a crucial moment, she focused completely on controlling her dantian. 2 hours later, her dantian finally stabilized. Chu Yao collapsed onto her bed. The amount of mental energy she had used up just now had been too great. Long Chen wasn't much better off than her. Without his powerful spiritual strength, he would have already fainted. The feeling of having to take hits without hitting back truly was a bit irritating. He covered Chu Yao with her blanket and left a piece of paper behind that told her to properly rest and to let him handle everything else. Chu Feng had been waiting 6 hours. Only now did he see an exhausted Long Chen walk down, and for a moment he didn't know what to say. Long Chen didn't even have the strength to explain. Let's go. I'm tired. But after the two of them Jade Yao Palace, they hadn't walked far before they were stopped by someone. The 4th prince wishes to see you. Chapter 66 Treacherous Intentions. The 4th prince poured a cup of tea for Long Chen. He smiled lightly. Brother Long truly is a dragon amongst men. No matter what, such boldness truly is worth admiring. 4th prince flatters me. But this little brother still doesn't know just how you recognized me, replied Long Chen. He really did want to know just what he had forgotten about. He was confident that his appearance-changing technique did not have the slightest flaw. Even a wise man who thinks it over 1,000 times will forget at least one thing. To be honest, I didn't actually recognize you at first, and it was only when I saw that ring on your hand that I managed to figure it out something was strange. Then, adding on your gaze, I realized it was you. The 4th prince pointed to Long Chen's hand. Only then did Long Chen suddenly realize that he was wearing his spatial ring on his finger. That ring had a design that was specific to the Alchemist Guild. He had actually forgotten such a large detail. The 4th prince truly is someone observant to the smallest detail. It really is worthy of admiration, but what I really want to know is, why did you help me? Asked Long Chen. You might not believe me even if I tell you. The truth is, I dislike Xia Changfeng intensely. No matter what else, Chu Yao is still my sister. Although familial affection is a luxury that can't be afforded in the Imperial Palace, I still have some in my heart. I do not have the heart to force Chu Yao to marry someone she doesn't like. But you also know that the Imperial Palace is simply like that. All that matters is if it will benefit the Empire. No one cares about your emotions. That is simply a helpless truth of living in the Imperial Palace. I've tried to persuade the Empress Dowager many times in hopes of changing her mind, but none of it had any effect. In the end I actually ended up infuriating her and being kicked out of her Empress Dowager Hall. From the fact that Brother Long come to visit Chu Yao today, I can tell you have truly sincere feelings for Chu Yao. But my ability is limited, and I can only help you this much, sighed the fourth prince. Fourth prince is too polite. Long Chen will remember this matter. It seemed he would have to owe a favor to the fourth prince for today. As for the matter of your Long family losing its stipend, I once tried investigating. But I was shut down before I could get to the bottom of it. So I'm also powerless when it comes to your Long family. Long Chen frowned and asked, "Can fourth prince tell me what he discovered?" Well, it was something that happened in the imperial palace, so it's extremely muddied. My brothers and I also fight and scheme against each other. I really am powerless when it comes to it. The fourth prince shook his head. Long Chen's eyes brightened ever so slightly. Although the fourth prince didn't give him a direct response, but the fact that he had purposely mentioned his brothers was definitely somewhat interesting. There were a total of 7 princes. Other than the fourth prince, there were 6 left. Of those remaining 6, the 7th prince could also be excluded. Then that left the crown, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 6th princes. Long Chen had observed each of them carefully at the Phoenix Cry Lantern Festival. Other than the crown prince, none of the others seemed to be shrewd enough. Then the most suspicious one would have to be the crown prince. Moreover, Long Chen had recognized the assassin who had killed Li Hao as one of his henchmen. All the evidence pointed to him. Many thanks. Long Chen cupped his hands. I didn't say anything. I can't accept your thanks, laughed the fourth prince. He then sighed, sometimes I truly envy you noble heirs. You can be free and unconstrained, not like us who do not have freedom. Sipping some tea, he replied, yes, he's taking the Southern Pass, a shortcut to the Grand Xia. A prince's wedding naturally requires many preparations. Long Chen nodded and kept that information in mind. At the same time, an outrageous idea popped into his head. If he could pull off that plan, this matter with Chu Yao would be easily resolved. The fourth prince chatted for a bit longer with Long Chen before politely seeing him off. When he once more returned to his room, a woman had appeared. That woman seemed to be in her 30s. She was tall and veiled in extravagance, giving off a cold sensation that she could not be offended. What you're doing right now is extremely dangerous, she said. The fourth prince smiled slightly and sipped some tea. Danger means risk, and risk means there's a chance of a high payout. I feel that it's worth it. If Long Chen loses, then he will just be another corpse, meaningless to us. But if he succeeds, then the plan will advance a couple steps. Mom, don't worry about it. That woman was precisely Phoenix Cry's Queen Mother of the Western Palace. She shook her head and said, I hope you know what you're doing. I have a mission in being married off to here. You and I have to remember that. You were originally a princess from the Grand Xia, but you came here to Phoenix Cry for your own goals. As for me, was I born to be just a chess piece? They plan on seizing Phoenix Cry's lands, making Xia Changfeng the ruler of this empire. Then he'll monopolize all the rich lands. When the time comes for credit, it'll all be theirs. As for us mother and son, are we destined to become their tools? But the fourth prince suddenly let out all his anger into loud bellow. The current him was just like a magical beast that had been provoked, capable of devouring anyone at any moment. Xiar, I know you're mad inside. With your talent, you wouldn't lose out to anyone. But this is fate. Fate? Fate is dictated by man. I will control my own fate. I will not be a puppet. I will become the emperor. That's impossible. Don't worry about it, I've already made all my plans. Right, how is the Empress Dowager? Asked the fourth prince. She's under my soul assimilation art. I can basically completely control her. But as a precaution, I always add a bit more control, she indifferently replied. Okay, good. Now we just have to wait for good news from Long Chen. I hope he doesn't disappoint. The fourth prince smiled. Raising his cup, he drained it in a single gulp. When Long Chen returned home, he saw there were a couple carriages by the gate. As soon as he walked past the gates, The housekeeper immediately informed him that there were guests present. Long Chen was startled, as it had been many years since someone had paid a visit to their Long family. Why were there guests now? He went straight to his mother. He could already see that she was talking with a couple smiling guests. Seeing Long Chen come over, she hastily said, "Chinikum, greet your two aunts." Amongst the group, two of them were old wives who were similar in age to his mother. Long Chen had no alternative but to greet them as aunts from his mother's side. Ah, what a good child. He's grown up in an instant. Quick, you guys quickly greet your cousin. One of them hastily called out to the few people behind her. There were 3 men and 2 women, all around the same age as Long Chen. One of the men awkwardly said, "Cousin, it's been many years." Long Chen nodded. He still vaguely remembered this person. Back when they were little, this person had forcefully snatched his toys, causing him to cry. Although he felt that it was a bit abrupt to suddenly meet his mother's family, seeing how happy she was, Long Chen also felt it would be bad to say anything about Tu, so he merely forced out a couple polite sentences. As soon as it was polite, Long Chen stood up and said his goodbyes. Only then did Long Chen learn from his mother that they had come to apologize to her. "Chinner, I also have a bit of a grudge against them for not coming to help us back when we first entered a crisis. However, now they came and told me the whole story. It wasn't that they didn't want to help, but that they didn't dare," sighed Mrs. That crisis has already passed and you've also become a high-status alchemist. Our Long family has also risen from that. Mom had also thought about it and accepted it. Let the past stay in the past. I hope you also won't hold it against them. After all, they are your mom's family. Long Chen coldly sneered inside. They hadn't dared to help? What had they been doing when the Long family had almost gotten to the point that they hadn't been able to afford food? Even if they didn't dare help, obviously, secretly sending a bit of money to help was still something incredibly easy. The current Long Chen was now a towering figure that no one in the capital didn't know of. He had a close relationship with Grandmaster Yun Qi and even dared to compete with Ing Ho at the auction. That was enough to display how domineering he was. Long Chen had used that kind of method to tell everyone that his Long family was no longer the same Long family as before. He was not someone that just anyone could bully. The fact they had only come now to apologize was clearly just them trying to curry favor. Long Chen truly held them in contempt, but since his mother had already forgiven them, he could not argue too much about it. If his mother wanted to, then she could do whatever she wants. Living in the secular world meant you had to endure living as how society expected you to. Seeing that Long Chen didn't have that much of a bad reaction to her family, Mrs. Long also became more at ease. After all, no matter how much of a grudge she had, they were her family. And having been alone for so many years, she also thirsted for familial love. Long Chen accompanied his mother for a while. She asked him a couple simple questions about his current situation and he replied with a couple vague sentences. Even if he was just doing the same thing as he always did, telling her the good news but not the bad, it still let her feel a bit relieved. After that, Long Chen went into seclusion. Having been busy all this time with dealing with Chu Yao's matter, he hadn't truly had time to focus on cultivation. Right now he had an idea to make sure Xia Changfeng remained forever in the Phoenix Cry Empire, but Xia Changfeng always had many guards around him. He had to be absolutely sure to completely eliminate that bastard in just one attempt. But ever since condensing the 10th cyclone, he had become completely bewildered about how he was supposed to cultivate further. He had no idea just how to use the 9-star hegemon body art to break through to the blood condensation realm. But there was no other way for him to get stronger. He had no real Dantian without the 9-star hegemon body art, so only by further training in it could he advance. His 10 cyclones wildly absorbed heaven and earth's energy, creating a steady flow of spiritual qi that entered his Feng Fu star. Long Chen found that the absorption rate was actually over 10 times greater than when he had only 9 cyclones, causing him to relax quite a bit. 3 days later, another explosion came from his Dantian. Long Chen saw that an 11th cyclone had been condensed inside his Dantian, causing his expression to become dull. He practically wanted to go crazy. Where was the end to this? If it continued like this and all he did was to continue condensing cyclones, he would definitely go crazy. It was just at this moment when he was almost about to crazy that Bauer's voice came from outside. "Young master, someone's looking for you." Chapter 67 Scarlet Flames Snow Wolf. Within the guest room was a woman in a long white skirt who was currently laughing at the stupefied Long Chen. "What? Do you not recognize me after just this little time?" Long Chen had never imagined that the guest looking for him was actually this woman. He felt as if he were dreaming. That woman was precisely the maiden who had protected him from Crap Brother Shi when he had attacked him on Sunset Mountain. No. I still haven't thanked Elder Sister for your help back then," hastily said Long Chen. "Don't call me Elder Sister, it sounds weird. I'm Sister Meng Qi's junior apprentice sister. My name is Lu Fanga, so you can call me Sister Fanga," she laughed. "Ha, then little brother Long Chen greets Sister Fanga," laughed Long Chen. He had a kind of friendly feeling towards this Lu Fanga. Seeing her made him feel that the distance between and Meng Qi was no longer as distant as before. He also had a way to pass on the soul-nourishing pill. "Ha, your mouth really is skillful. No wonder you've become the idol in the hearts of all the Phoenix Cry Empire's maidens." Lu Fanga held out drawing to him and laughed. Looking at that drawing, Long Chen immediately felt embarrassed. That was the cover of the comic depiction of his battle with Huang Chang, the Phoenix Cry Divine Battle. "Cough, that was just a joke some merchants made. You confessed your emotions to a princess and then used your strength to defeat a powerful opponent. That was a joke?" Lu Fanga teased. Long Chen immediately felt his heart drop. If that matter was heard by Meng Qi then. "Long Chen, this isn't acceptable. My big sis is a fairy in human form. For her to have a favorable impression of you, do you not know how to treasure that?" Lu Fanga was a bit dissatisfied. "Since we know each other a bit, I'll give you some advice. Immediately break things off with that princess and I won't have to tell my big sis about it." His expression immediately changed when he heard this. Thinking about the warmth and tenderness Chu Yao currently felt for him, he shook his head and sighed. "Sorry, I can't do that." As he said that he felt as if needles were stabbing into his heart. That decision was extremely difficult to make. Meng Qi's beauty and kindness had been deeply imprinted into his heart. She had given him his first taste of the feeling of love. As for Chu Yao, she would sacrifice her everything for him. Asking him to leave Chu Yao at this time was absolutely impossible for him. "How can you be so stubborn? Even with my sister you aren't satisfied. You actually have to play around with the woman here too. If you choose her then don't ever think about seeing my sister again," angrily warned Lu Fang. Long Chen took a deep breath. In the face of his complicated feelings, he was completely helpless. He refused to give on either of them. But now he had to choose which one. Seeing that Long Chen remained silent, Lu Fanga continued, "Are you really going to give on my sister for some princess?" "I'm not giving up. I cannot give up on either one." Long Chen shook his head. "Ha, your face really is thick. You actually want to monopolize two beauties for yourself." The angry Lu Fanga actually laughed when she saw Long Chen act so confidently and shameless. Long Chen was startled at that. He didn't quite understand just what Lu Fanga was saying. Whatever. This is how a true man should act. If you really did give up that pitiful princess just to appease me, then you really would have had to say goodbye forever to my sister," laughed Lu Fang. "How could a man who is fickle in love possibly enter my sister's eyes? That was just a small test just now. I suppose you've just managed to pass." A bead of sweat silently rolled off Long Chen's forehead. A feeling of exhaustion rolled over him. He would rather have a huge battle with someone than endure such a test again. "However, you're also celebrating too early. That test was just one I did from a personal point of view. As for my big sister, whether she will let you have another beauty along with her is something only the heavens know," Lu Fanga laughingly warned him when she saw him relax. His nerves, which had only just relaxed, immediately tightened again. Lu Fanga continued, "But from what I understand about my sister, you should have the greatest chance out of all men. And with me helping you, your chances should increase even more. Then I'll thank Sister Fanga for the help, hastily said Long Chen. I won't disturb you anymore. I had business to do in coming here. After flying for 7 days and nights, I'm already completely exhausted. Plus, you don't even know to pour me a cup of tea, sighed Lu Fang'er discontentedly. Oh, I'll immediately pour some tea for Sister Fang'er. Long Chen quickly and carefully poured a cup of tea for her. There was no way around it. He definitely had to give her a good impression for the sake of Meng Qi. Lu Fang'er took the teacup with a somewhat strange expression. Does your Long family normally like to use cold water for tea? Only then did Long Chen realize the pot was already completely cold. But he thickened his face and said, this is cold tea that's supposed to be drunk cold. Sister Fang'er can try it. It'd be strange if anyone believed you, scolded Fang'er. If Sister Fang'er doesn't want to drink cold tea, then I'll immediately steep some hot tea for you. Forget about it. As long as you have the right heart, then it's fine. Coming and going like this is actually quite annoying, but if I didn't then I'd feel too sorry for you. For a moment Long Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This Fang'er truly was mischievous. But she still gave off a very innocent and lively feeling. She said whatever she wanted to. It really was easy for people to feel friendly to her. The Wind Spirit Pavilion was many thousands of miles away from this place. Even if she was riding a magical beast, traveling for 7 full days and nights was still extremely exhausting. So he could understand her teasing of him. Next I'll tell you some good news. My sister gave me a gift for you. Lu Fang'er pointed to a small trunk to the side. Only then did Long Chen realize there was a rectangular trunk 2 feet tall. When the trunk was gently opened, Long Chen was astonished to see that there was a small furred creature inside. It was a 2-foot-tall wolf cub. Its body was completely snow white. Only a small section of fur at the middle of its forehead was a fiery red color. It was extremely adorable. This small cub had yet to even open its eyes after being born. It was blindly searching around, appearing to look for food. Scarlet Flame Snow Wolf. Long Chen was extremely startled. This was the cub of a magical beast that he had read about before. The Scarlet Flame Snow Wolf. Its body was completely snow white with only a small lock of fur that was a blazing red color. It was extremely easy to recognize. But most Scarlet Flame Snow Wolves weren't of a completely pure bloodline. Their fur would be a duller color and would sometimes even have some spots. But this Snow Wolf cub didn't have a single spot. That meant it was an extremely pure-blooded Scarlet Flame Snow Wolf. Such a Scarlet Flame Snow Wolf that was completely pure would grow to become a 3rd-rank magical beast when matured, and it could even reach the 4th rank. That was an existence that surpassed muscle rebirth experts. Correct, this is a pure-blooded Scarlet Flame Snow Wolf that has just been born. It was given to my sister as a gift from her master, but she instead wanted me to fly through the night to give it to you. Lu Fang'er looked at Long Chen with a complicated expression. His heart shook. Not only had Meng Qi not forgotten about him, but she actually worried about him. These feelings of a beauty caused Long Chen to feel an urge to cry. Originally sister wanted it to be your house pet, but she definitely never thought that you'd have already become a pill adept. Your spiritual strength isn't low, so I can impart a couple techniques to control beasts to you. Then this Scarlet Flame Snow Wolf can become a battle pet, said Lu Fang'er. Ordinary martial artists would always have beast masters use their martial force or other techniques to gradually tame the magical beast, letting it become a house pet. But such a house pet wasn't perfect. After all, magical beasts had a violent and brutal aura that had seeped deep into their bones. A house pet devouring their master was a common occurrence. But even so, magical beast house pets were still extremely precious. Although it was a bit dangerous, once it was properly trained and if it was used properly, a magical beast was definitely an extremely terrifying addition to your combat strength. What was special about a battle pet was that it could be controlled much better. However, to have such a control over a magical beast required an extremely strong spiritual strength. Ordinary people were absolutely incapable of that. With the spiritual strength connecting and communicating with the magical beast, both beast and owner could work together. Not only was the power of a battle pet much greater, but the chance of it betraying its master was essentially zero. But it also required having your spiritual strength connected to the magical beast for a long time, which not only used a great deal of time, but was also extremely exhausting. Meng Qi didn't know about Long Chen's current strength. She had sent the cub in hopes that the Scarlet Flame Snow Wolf would follow Long Chen as it grew up and be an extra life-preserving measure in the future. But the current Long Chen was already a pill adept. Lu Feng'er directly imparted a couple techniques for controlling magical beasts to him. What surprised Lu Feng'er was that Long Chen was able to comprehend the techniques with just a quick explanation. He would ask a couple questions that went right to the core of how the technique functioned. But there was a limit to how much Lu Feng'er could pass on to Long Chen. She could only teach him the common beast controlling techniques that circulated in the public. As for the core techniques of her sect, she didn't dare pass them on without permission. Long Chen's intelligence completely won over Lu Feng'er. She realized Long Chen was definitely a freak monster. He remembered every word and comprehended everything almost immediately. He even asked her questions about ideas that she hadn't ever thought of. She stayed for half a day at the Long family. After Lu Feng'er saw that Long Chen had completely comprehended all the techniques she passed on to him, she directly left. But before she left, Long Chen gave her the precious soul-nourishing pill to give to Meng Qi. Once she left, Long Chen looked down at the little cub he was holding to his chest and couldn't help feeling a burst of warmth. The Scarlet Flame Snow Wolf proved that he was present within Meng Qi's heart. Long Chen couldn't help feeling extremely grand knowing that Meng Qi cared about him. He hoped to resolve everything in the capital as soon as possible so that he could step out of these uncivilized lands and enter that vaster sky. That was because he knew there was an unmatched beauty waiting for him. Thinking of Meng Qi, Long Chen felt his blood burn hotter. He had to quickly rise. Wah! Suddenly the small cub in his arms let out a loud cry and start patting its way over Long Chen's body. Looking at that little fellow, Long Chen smiled. But at that moment, he suddenly felt an extremely indistinct killing intent. Chapter 68 News of his father. There was someone spying on him. That was his first reaction. However, even after spreading out his divine sense throughout the entire Long household, he was unable to find anyone suspicious. But that feeling had definitely not been a mistake. With his perceptive spirit, he had definitely sensed that extremely indistinct killing intent. Long Chen was fully confident in his intuition. If there was no one suspicious in the Long household, then that meant the enemy was watching from further away. Seeing that the sky was already darkening, Long Chen muttered to himself and placed the puppy-like Scarlet Flame Snow Wolf back into its trunk. That trunk was something Lu Feng'er had brought over. Inside was a nourishing fluid that was enough for the cub to consume so that it wouldn't die. Setting up a proper place for the little cub, he then changed and left his estate. As expected, his intuition had been correct. As soon as he went past the gates, he sensed that he was being watched by people. A cold smile appeared on his face as he continued walking. He knew those people were preparing to kill him. If he had guessed correctly, they should have been waiting for nightfall to sneak into the Long estate and assassinate him. He preferred not to fight in his home, so he left. And as he had expected, after he walked a dozen miles away and entered a remote region with no one else present, a sharp whistling arrow was shot straight for his back. By the time he reacted and went on guard, it was already too late. He was shot through, groaning as he tumbled to the ground. Over 10 figures surrounded Long Chen. Those people were all wearing veiled masks. Raising their swords, they completely cut off any retreat paths. What Phoenix Cry number 1 junior generation, he's just an idiot. He was handled so easily, coldly sneered one of the masked men. As soon as he said, an arrow firmly shot him right through the stomach. His eyes widened and he didn't even dare look down at his stomach as he felt his life quickly fading. He tumbled to the ground. Even as he died, he had no idea just who it was that had killed him. Careful! The others all immediately retreated, looking in shock at Long Chen. They noticed that the arrow on his back had disappeared. More importantly, Long Chen seemed absolutely fine. He got up from the ground and indifferently patted the dust off his clothes. Long Chen had long since been on guard, so how could it possibly have been so easy to ambush him? The very instant that arrow had been about to hit him, it had already been caught by him in midair. But he had faked being hit and tumbled to the ground powerlessly. Everything had been an act he had put on extremely convincingly. The reason he did this was to find out what this group had come for. The arrowhead didn't have any poison on it, and the twang of the bowstring had been too loud. Assassins definitely wouldn't randomly walk up to enemy who wasn't confirmed to be dead. Together, following one of their shouts, the masked men suddenly released their auras. Blood chi soared to the sky. Every single one of them was a blood condensation expert. Metal rang out as a sword appeared in Long Chen's hand. That was the weapon of the one he had killed. He used it now to block one of their attacks. The person whose attack he blocked felt his hand turn numb. The power behind Long Chen's sword blow was shockingly great. The sword in his hand was blown away and he was knocked onto his back. A cold light flashed over that person's body and he was split into two. A rain of blood descended for a moment. Now that Long Chen had condensed 11 cyclones that had reached a terrifying size, even a random blow from him was practically unstoppable. After easily killing a blood condensation expert with a wave of his sword, the pungent smell of blood filled the air. The cyclones in his body almost seemed to have been provoked, and without any urging from Long Chen they started to circulate faster and faster. In just the blink of an eye, 2 of their group had died. Both shock and rage filled with. They bellowed angrily and charged all at the same time, each of them stabbing towards one of Long Chen's vital points. Long Chen coldly snorted. Spiritual chi surged rapidly into his arms. Using just that one sword, Long Chen fended off the attacks of over 10 people. With a crisp bang, chi waves surged out with shockingly terrifying fluctuations. With the combined force of over 10 people, they forced Long Chen back several steps. He wasn't injured at all, however his sword was unable to take such terrifying strength and shattered, leaving only the hilt. They were all greatly shocked that Long Chen was able to fend off their combined attack alone. 3 of them were at the mid-blood condensation realm. Good again. One of them ordered. Although his voice was suppressed to be quiet, there was something indescribably strange about that voice. They didn't need this reminder. They all knew that this was the best moment. They all charged at the unarmed Long Chen. Looking at those masked black-robed attackers, a ridiculing smile appeared on his face. He lightly rubbed his ring. Golden light suddenly lit up the sky. A huge battle axe cut through the sky. It was just like the full moon as it swung through a mournful arc. Blood and broken limbs flew everywhere. The terrifying strength of the battle axe dug a huge hole in the ground. 9 of them died under it. Now there were only 3 remaining. And that was because those 3 were somewhat slower. When they had seen a huge battle axe suddenly appear in his hands, they instinctively had slowed down slightly, allowing them to escape death. But while they had managed to survive, the others were not so lucky. In front of that huge battle axe, the swords in their hands were no different from toys. All of them had been crushed into pieces. That huge power had even managed to impress Long Chen. This was the domineering style of heavy weapons. Your power would multiply, allowing you to completely crush enemies head-on. But one of the drawbacks was that Long Chen needed 2 hands to hold the battle axe. That was because the handle was too thick. At the same time, just one hand's strength was unable to draw out all of the potential power of the battle axe. Although that battle axe was extremely powerful, due to having used too much force, his arms ended up feeling extremely sore. Now it's time to send you guys to hell. He slowly raised the huge battle axe. Only then did the remaining 3 react. They immediately fled, disappearing in just a couple blinks. Seeing the direction those 3 were fleeing, Long Chen helplessly sighed. He sat himself down on the huge axe, seeming to not have the slightest intention of chasing after them. It wasn't that he didn't want to chase, but that he wouldn't be able to do anything to them even if he caught up. Due to underestimating the splitting mountain battleaxe's weight and power, he had misjudged how much strength to use and ended up dislocating his own shoulder. His raising of the battleaxe was just to scare them off. Otherwise, if they didn't flee, then he would be the one running. Twisting his shoulder, he popped it back into its socket. Suddenly, he turned to some bushes to the side and said, "Having hidden for so long, don't you think it's time to come out and say a couple things?" Those bushes remained silent. Long Chen smiled slightly and suddenly a red medicinal pill appeared in his hand. With a flick of his finger, the red pill fell into the bushes. That medicinal pill burst apart when it landed in the bushes. Countless strands of red smoke immediately filled the air. The smoke spread extremely quickly, reaching hundreds of meters away. That was a poison pill. The pills refined from alchemists didn't just save lives, they also could take lives. Long Chen had kept that poison pill for a long time. Back in the heroic assembly house when he had fought against Huang Chang, he was just about to use it when the crown prince had walked in. That was a life-preserving measure. But now that he had even better medicinal pills, that pill had lost its use. A figure quickly fled from the bushes, rushing towards the distance. "I'd advise you not to run. Otherwise in just a few minutes the poison will reach your heart and you'll die," indifferently said Long Chen. That figure stopped and paused for a moment. Perhaps he was considering whether Long Chen was telling the truth or not, but in the end he decided to stay. Young master's techniques truly are worthy of praise. That person slowly walked over and bowed. He appeared to be about in his 20s. He was slightly thin and appeared weak. His face was exceptionally plain, one that would be hard to pick out amongst a crowd. "Who are you?" Reporting to young master, "This little one is Qin Fei. I was sent by your father to secretly protect his wife and son," said Qin Fei. "My father? Do you have any proof of that?" Long Chen was pleasantly surprised, but he still needed proof. That person took out something from his robes and handed it to Long Chen. "This is a keepsake. I really am ashamed. I believe that young master should definitely recognize it." Long Chen immediately turned a bit sour when he saw that thing. It was a bamboo sword, the first gift his father had ever given to him as a child. At that time he had only been 2 years old. He had been so excited back then that he had wildly brandished it as if he was a great expert. Back then his father had accompanied him like that every day. He would occasionally give him encouragement as he wildly swung his bamboo sword, and his mother would laugh secretly to the side. Those were the soft and warm days of their 3-person family. It felt like it was just yesterday. He seemed to be able to see his father's strict but pampering expression. But a child was a child. A toy was something that didn't remain novel for long. He later became enraptured by real swords and blades. That bamboo sword was lost somewhere he had never bothered with. Looking at the bamboo sword now, he saw there was a bright shine to it. That was obviously something that could only be left behind by stroking it thousands of times. Master really did wish to see his son and wife over these years, but he was absolutely unable to reunite with his family. But if he learned that his son had reached such a point, he would definitely be extremely gratified, said Qin Fei. Long Chen carefully put away the bamboo sword. This news of his father caused him to be even more excited than if he broken through his current realm. It had been so many years, but his father had never once even sent a letter back. He actually sometimes wondered if his father no longer wanted his wife and child. It would be a lie to say that he didn't have a bit of a grudge inside him. Hearing Qin Fei's words today, that sore point in his heart was finally released. At the same time, he was also a bit ashamed. In terms of trusting his father, he was far from equal to his mother. "Come back to the estate. I have some things I want to talk about with you," said Long Chen. He had now understood many things. Although he didn't know the whole picture, he felt that he was now capable of changing his own fate. "Young master, you believe me just like this?" Qin Fei was surprised. "Of course I believe you. That's because if you had lied just now, the current you would already be a corpse." Chapter 69 The Secret Troubles of Long Tianxiao. Of course I believe you. That's because if you had lied just now, the current you would already be a corpse. Long Chen's light words were filled with self-confidence. Chen Fei was greatly alarmed. But examining his body, he didn't notice any changes. That pill that I threw out is called the soul-burning pill. Even if you completely stopped your breath just now, it would have been completely useless. That poisonous gas directly erodes yours pore to enter your blood. If you use too much strength or fight intensely, your blood will begin to flow quicker and the poison will immediately invade your spirit. At that time, your death would be doubtless, explained Long Chen. Chen Fei's expression changed. He had never imagined that Long Chen's poison pill would be so terrifying. But since Long Chen already trusted him, he definitely wouldn't deceive him now. The reason I believe you is because I am confident in my pills. If you had lied when I questioned you just now, your blood would have begun circulating faster. Then blood would flow out of your 7 apertures. Hear this. Long Chen handed Chen Fei a medicinal pill. Chen Fei didn't even think about it before directly swallowing it. After taking this pill, the poison in your body will be destroyed. However, the effect is a bit slow, so you cannot undergo any intense fights for the next 3 days. Okay, let's go. Long Chen directly started walking back home. Chen Fei hastily went to keep up with him. They left behind a miserable area of blood and severed limbs. Bastard, you actually dare try to kill Long Chen behind my back? Do you think that I don't dare kill you? Within a secret room, a white-robed man was angrily cursing at Xia Changfeng. A murderous aura came from him. At the same time, a terrifying killing intent seemed to take solid form and locked Xia Changfeng in place. It was as if a sharp blade was being held to Xia Changfeng's neck. As long as the white-robed man wished it, his life would be over in an instant. Brother Luo, listen to me. This wasn't done by me. My sister ordered my subordinates. I know nothing about it. Xia Changfeng was completely terrified as he tried to explain the situation. Sweat had completely drenched his robes. That killing intent was just too terrifying. Even he, a blood condensation expert, was unable to block it. He felt as if he were a tiny ant that was completely unable to resist. Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you really think your guards would follow the orders of your sister without your go-ahead? You obviously wanted to remove that thorn Long Chen before you left. It's lucky that Long Chen didn't die, otherwise this matter would have truly blown up. Even if you had 10 lives, you wouldn't be able to block the anger from those higher-ups, coldly shouted the white-robed man. Xia Changfeng lowered his head and didn't dare say anything. It was true that the assassination attempt of Long Chen had been arranged by Xia Baiqi, but the white-robed man was entirely correct. He had lent his personal guards to her. He had hoped that once Long Chen was dead, he could push the blame onto Xia Baiqi. With her pill adept status, she should be fine. Having already borrowed so much money from Xia Baiqi at the auction, he had been forced by her to provide help. But he hadn't expected that a group of blood condensation experts would fail and only have 3 of their members return. But before he could even clearly ask what had happened, that white-robed man had already arrived. Xia Changfeng, this is your last warning. Your matters are small. If the bigger plots go wrong, let alone you, even your entire Grand Xia is unable to handle the punishment. Go back and tell your stupid sister that if she once more dares take such a rash course, I will personally twist off her head. That old pervert Wei Tsang never once truly placed her in his eyes, coldly snorted the white-robed man. Yes, Changfeng will definitely properly instruct his sister. I definitely won't cause any more trouble. Xia Changfeng nodded his head over and over. Long Tianxiao has already stated that if anything unexpected happens to his wife or son, he will give up his border post and kill his way into the capital. But in the most recent years, the battles with the barbarian tribes have becoming increasingly intense, and the capital has long since stopped sending him reinforcements. His original army of 50,000 troops has shrunk to only 20,000. The surrounding commoners care about your father's benevolence, sending him women and sons to supplement his army as well as army provisions. If it weren't for them, we'd have long since been unable to persevere. Anger could be heard within his voice. The capital's attitude to Jinyu and Ho truly was a bitter disappointment. If it weren't for them seeing the many commoners' ardent gazes, they would have already left. The barbarian tribes were actually many separate clans. They were simply grouped together as barbarian tribes as a generic group term. Born in the savage wilderness, they had to use cruel methods just to survive in their harsh environment. They hunted and gathered their food, just barely managing to survive. But that harsh environment actually ended up tempering them, and most of their population was much stronger than an ordinary commoner. As they grew stronger, they naturally began to develop and spread out, claiming more and more lands. In the end, they found the border of the Phoenix Cry Empire with its rich lands and produce. Plundering this place was much easier than hunting. The reason they were called barbarian tribes was also because they lived their lives very differently from ordinary people. Whole families would sleep together on the same bed. They also copulated without any regard to generation or sex. It definitely seemed chaotic to others. Other than their own tribe, the other tribes were just prey. Tribes would attack other tribes indiscriminately. And if they ended up capturing Phoenix Cry's commoners, the men would just be killed and stored as food, while the women would be used for sex and then killed for food. Phoenix Cry's commoners both hated and were afraid of them. The barbarian tribes ended up plundering more and more as time went on, and only once that had reached a shocking point had the empire finally react. But the barbarian tribes actually had a surprisingly large population. They traveled like the wind, disappearing one night and appearing at a whole new place. They weren't like Phoenix Cry's commoners who had set residences. It was basically impossible to find their nest, and so Phoenix Cry's troops could only stay on the defense. Once Long Tianxiao was sent to the border, he repeatedly launched sneak attacks against the barbarian tribes, causing the rivers to run red with their blood. This ended up intimidating the barbarian tribes, while the commoners near the border could all take a breath of relief and live in peace. That was how Long Tianxiao ended up becoming a military god in the eyes of the commoners. As Long Tianxiao's army fought with the barbarian tribes, the frequent raids ended up costing a great deal. Without reinforcements, the army's numbers quickly dwindled. But the surrounding commoners all helped and supported him to the best of their abilities. If they had extra manpower, then they sent their sons to join the army. If they had extra money, then they sent food over. Everything they could afford was sent to Jinyuan army. However, that kind of supply was far from enough. When the army wasn't fighting, they would always go help the commoners farm, which was also a way to increase their own supplies. So the commoners and army men along the border were basically all one family now. Recalling their eyes that were filled with hope and expectation, Chen Fei's eyes reddened slightly. Even if they had to die, they definitely wouldn't allow those commoners to suffer harm. Chen Fei told all this to Long Chen, allowing him to finally understand his father's secret troubles. On one side was his wife and son, while on the other were the lives of millions of innocent commoners. If it was Long Chen, he would also be hard-pressed to choose. That grievance he had against his father melted into nothing, and pride filled his heart. A brave expert who fights for an empire's people, that was a true hero. Chen Fei, return to where my father is? Long Chen thought about it but still ended up wanting him to return. Chen Fei's expression changed. I absolutely cannot. Sorry, young master, but these are my master's orders. I must follow them. Chen Fei shook his head. Long Chen couldn't help being both startled and furious. His father had actually decided to sacrifice his mother to save him in that situation. Perhaps that was because of his pampering of him, but he was completely unable to accept that. Taking a deep breath, Long Chen suppressed his fury and coldly said, Chen Fei, I'm not arguing with you. I am ordering you. Don't end up hurting me and my mother just for some silly order. I'm going to the Alchemist Guild right now to get some medicinal ingredients. I'll spend all night refining, and you will bring them to my father. Don't even speak about saving me and my mother. If I wanted your life right now, it would be as effortless as blowing off dust. Right now I have the strength to temporarily protect the Long household. But events are rapidly turning, and I need my father's help quickly. So now I'm giving you two options. Listen to me and return to my father's side. Or die here. Without more of the antidote, the poison will still inevitably kill you. Chen Fei's expression became a mix of green and white. He could easily hear the fury within Long Chen's words. He could almost see the image of Long Tianxiao within him. He was certain that if he really dared to disobey, Long Chen really would take his life. He wasn't afraid of death, but such a meaningless death truly would not be worth it. Anyways, this was a matter for the Long family. He could only bitterly smile and agree. Of course, inside he was extremely agonized. Just how was he supposed to face Long Tianxiao once he returned? Long Chen went straight to the Alchemist Guild. Now that he had so much money from the auction, he no longer needed to worry about buying medicinal ingredients on credit. Coming to the guild now had definitely been a smart decision, as they had all the medicinal ingredients he required. Using Chen Fei as a guard, Long Chen directly started using his flame to warm the furnace. The pill he was refining this time was called the Breaking Barrier Pill. It was an extremely ordinary second-tier medicinal pill that could increase the chance of breaking through bottlenecks. But the medicinal formula Long Chen was using had come from a pill god's memories. It used the same medicinal ingredients, but through merging them in different proportions, it created an entirely different effect. In addition, Long Chen had added dragon bone grass as well. That kind of intense medicinal ingredient would increase the pill's medicinal energy. This was no longer an ordinary breaking barrier pill. This breaking barrier pill was used to attack the muscle rebirth realm. The lower grade breaking barrier pill gave people an extra 10% chance of breaking through. But the one Long Chen was planning on refining was a higher quality and could allow cultivators an extra 30% chance of breaking through. If that was learned by others, it would definitely shake the current world. Such a medicinal pill was even more shocking than the flesh-bone restoration pill from the auction. In reality, that flesh-bone restoration pill had a large flaw, however Long Chen hadn't told them. If an ordinary person were to have their limbs severed, then they really could grow a new limb without any problems. But if a cultivator took it, they would end using their spirit root's true spiritual core energy to heal it. That would end up shortening their peak potential. Back then, Long Chen had cut off Fugure's arm and he had healed it without causing any problems. But later when Yao Niqian called up Zhao Yang, well, in any case, adventurers were in constant danger of being cut like that. And it wasn't as if he could resist Yao Niqian's charm anyways. Boom! The medicinal furnace shook. Opening it, 3 round medicinal pills appeared. A faint glimmer shined off them, causing a weary Long Chen to smile. This was his third furnace of pills. The first time he had succeeded in refining 3 pills. But the second time he had just been slightly distracted for a moment, causing a furnace explosion. The pill furnace only narrowly managed to avoid not being destroyed. That furnace of pills turned to ashes. Refining pills was simply like that. Just the slightest inattentiveness could easily cause failure. Even with all the techniques of a pill god, it would be impossible to avoid some failures. His goal had been to refine 2 furnaces worth of pills. Now that he had failed once, he had no choice but to attempt a third time despite his exhaustion. The breaking barrier pill which had the dragon bone grass added into it was extremely hard to refine. Even with Long Chen's powerful spiritual strength, he was still completely exhausted. But looking at the 6 medicinal pills, he felt that all that exhaustion was worth it. He handed them to a shocked Chen Fei in addition to a letter. Chen Fei left before the day even brightened. Long Chen took a quick nap to re-energize himself. Waking up, he realized he felt much freer and less worried. The matter of his father had been pressing on him like a huge boulder. Now that he had finally learned of his father's situation, he was filled with anticipation. The only thing that kept worrying him was that Chen Fei hadn't known just who was targeting his father. Long Tianxiao had never told anyone that. But that wasn't too important anymore. Now that he had news of his father, he was filled with fighting spirit. Getting out bed, he picked up Little Snow. Little Snow was what Long Chen had decided to name the Scarlet Flame Snow Wolf. Little Snow's eyes were still permanently closed as he cried and fussed. Long Chen smiled slightly and bit down on his finger, drawing a drop of blood. He dripped the blood into Little Snow's mouth. When Little Snow swallowed that drop of blood, his closed eyes finally slowly opened. He curiously looked up at Long Chen. His large eyes plus the small tuft of red hair on his forehead was indescribably cute. For most magical beasts, the flavor of the first blood they tasted would be forever remembered. The owner of that blood would then become their family. Of course, cold-blooded magical beasts were excepted from this. There were different techniques for them. As soon as Little Snow opened his eyes, he slowly started to crawl over to Long Chen. His walking was extremely unstable and he might trip and fall at any moment, but he still continued crawling towards him. Long Chen felt a burst of warmth when he looked at the little fellow. With his powerful spiritual strength, he could clearly sense the yearning within Little Snow's spirit. As soon as Little Snow approved of Long Chen was supposed to use his spiritual strength to use the secret techniques Lu Fenger had taught him. That would place a kind of slave imprint of Little Snow's spirit so that he could never betray him. But Long Chen continued to hesitate to use the slave imprint. He couldn't bear to make this little guy a slave. Pondering over this, he suddenly felt his face become wet. That little guy had at some point crawled onto Long Chen's lap and was enthusiastically washing his face. Long Chen laughed and hugged the little guy. He brought Little Snow out of the Long estate to the outskirts of the city. Now that the little guy had opened his eyes, it was time for him to temper himself. Magical beasts had an extremely tenacious vitality. Basically, as soon as they opened their eyes, they were capable of finding and eating their own food. They would no longer require that nutrient fluid they had needed as a cub. Bringing him out of the city was precisely the fastest way for Little Snow to mature. But before he left the city, he still had to find a certain someone. In just over an hour, Long Chen arrived at a large pasture. Suddenly a huge roar rang out, and the entire earth trembled along with it. A smile appeared on Long Chen's face. Chapter 71 12th Level of Qi Condensation. The southern pass was almost 1,000 miles to the southwest of the capital. It was a narrow pass between sharp mountains and cliffs that represented the border with the Grand Xia. Within the mountain range were huge trees that reached for the sky and countless wild beasts. Magical beasts even occasionally roamed there. It was a wild land with no signs of human habitation. The southern pass had a valley that was sided by tall, precipitous cliffs. The valley had to be traversed in order to get to the Grand Xia. Boom! Within the depths of the mountain range was a secluded pool. Long Chen was sitting cross-legged on a boulder. With another muffled bang from within his body, a 12th cyclone was born. The originally 3-meter-wide cyclones immediately grew to become a terrifying 30 meters. It truly caused a person to feel numb. For most Qi condensation cultivators, their cyclones were only the size of a fist. Some of them might have their cyclones be a foot wide. If a person's cyclone was 2 feet long, then that would qualify them as a legendary genius. But Long Chen's cyclones had already reached an incomparable size. The size of the cyclones dictated how quickly you could absorb spiritual qi from heaven and earth. Even once you advanced to blood condensation, your cyclones would still remain. In other words, your cyclones were your ultimate way of absorbing spiritual qi. Normally you would be extremely happy to have your cyclones grow larger. But once they grew so large that it was inconceivable to you, that would naturally startle and horrify you. Long Chen looked inside his dantian. The 12 cyclones were like a group of huge mouths that were voraciously devouring heaven and earth's spiritual qi. The spiritual qi in this place was much denser than in the capital. Long Chen had managed to break through in just 2 days. He was becoming more and more worried and uncertain about the 9-star hegemon body art. Just when was the end of this? The size of the cyclones was now completely shocking. Just as Long Chen was thinking things over, a snow-white little fellow jumped onto the huge rock he was on and wiggled into his embrace. Looking at that adorable fellow, Long Chen immediately put aside those worries and picked him up. Lu Feng'er had taught Long Chen how to raise magical beasts. Over the past 2 days, Long Chen had caught a couple wild pheasants. He used their blood to nourish Little Snow. What caused Long Chen to click his tongue in wonder was that magical beasts truly were magical beasts. As soon as he drank their blood, he immediately started to grow stronger, no longer stumbling and staggering when he walked. But what was most inconceivable to him was that despite Little Snow not having any teeth, he actually still tightly bit down on the pheasant, tearing away a piece of flesh and swallowing it in one gulp. But Little Snow's throat wasn't wide enough and the food got stuck. The little guy ended up rolling around in a panic. Long Chen was given a fright and hastily picked the food out of his throat. But the little guy actually seemed to act on instinct and immediately started to tear at more flesh. Long Chen was helpless to that and could only tear the pheasant into small enough pieces for him. But the result was that Long Chen's eyes almost popped out of his head. Little Snow was originally only a bit larger than a hand, but he actually managed to finish half the pheasant, which was almost twice his size. Even after half that pheasant, Little Snow's only enlarged slightly. He then crawled beside Long Chen and took a long nap. After the nap, he actually began to eat again. In just a couple days he had already grown to become a foot long. He had even grown 4 new teeth. Although they were still extremely immature, Little Snow still had enough power behind them to tear his food on his own now. The little fellow actually appeared very fierce, but he was extremely affectionate with Long Chen. After he was tired, he would crawl into Long Chen's embrace and doze off. Sometimes he would even lick Long Chen's face. But now Long Chen really couldn't use him to wash his face. Now that Little Snow had started to eat flesh, the smell was a bit too strong. Long Chen gently stroked Little Snow. Whenever he looked at the little fellow, he would think of Meng Qi's beautiful and perfect image. A fire would burn within his heart. Boom! Long Chen saw that a couple miles away in a forest, a huge tree toppled down. At the same time, an earth-shaking roar rang out. Long Chen shook his head and rushed over there while holding Little Snow. Arriving at the jungle, he saw that the originally dense forest now had an area hundreds of meters wide that was a complete mess. The trees in this area had all been snapped and crushed. Within the center of the disorderly zone was a huge figure holding a 3-meter-long huge savage bull. Amon, how many times have I told you to use a bit of skill to hunt? Use the smallest amount of energy to achieve your goal. Long Chen looked helplessly at Amon. Hee, Brother Long, I remembered what you said right up till the point I saw my prey. Amon scratched his head in embarrassment, looking at the huge bull whose neck had been snapped, and he didn't know just what to say. Amon's strength seemed endless. He was just like a terrifying magical beast in human form. But it seemed that when it came to using skillful techniques, he didn't have any talent at all. Along their path, in order to keep himself full, Amon had already killed 4 magical beasts. Although this savage bull was just a first-rank magical beast, its strength was still shocking. An ordinary blood condensation cultivator wasn't necessarily a match for it. But it was just like it was nothing more than a chicken in front of Amon. Its neck had been broken without it having the slightest ability to resist. Amon's favorite method of fighting was to directly use his full force to completely overwhelm his opponent. This caused quite a headache for Long Chen. It was just like he was magical beast. He favored attacking instinctively. He could remember things while not fighting, but as soon as he was in battle, everything would be thrown out of his head. Okay, well, let's handle this bull for now. Skin off the fur and bury the viscera. Only leave the meat. Long Chen took out a sharp knife and began to skin the bull. That kind of meticulous work was something he didn't even bother trying to get Amon to do. Maybe if it was crushing the bull into a pulp, he could ask Amon to do it. The scent of a magical beast's blood could spread extremely far. Even if it was 100 miles away, magical beasts could smell it. After gutting and skinning it, Amon brought the fur and viscera back to the camp. The camp location Long Chen had chosen was behind a waterfall. There was a natural cave there, a ready-made shelter. In addition, the flowing waterfall could block their scent, making it more difficult for other magical beasts to notice them. Although they weren't afraid of ordinary magical beasts, being sneak attacked was also extremely troublesome. If it was a poisonous magical beast, then that would be a fatal danger. The cave was very wide. Long Chun started a fire and cooked the bull on a frame over the flame, roasting it. In less than 2 hours, a fragrant smell filled the cave. When Little Snow smelled it and saw the huge bull, he struggled free of Long Chun's embrace and charged right at it. Long Chun was startled and hastily grabbed him. If he was a bit later, then Little Snow would have already jumped into the fire. Although that wouldn't burn him to death, but his snow-white fur would all be scorched. "Don't make trouble." Long Chun put on an angry expression for Little Snow. The little fellow seemed to be able to sense Long Chun's anger and immediately became more obedient. His large eyes stared into the ground and he didn't dare look Long Chun in the eyes, seeming to acknowledge his error. Although Long Chun hadn't placed a slave imprint on him, with a couple of the techniques Lu Feng'er had left him that were used to communicate and connect with him, he was still able to clearly express his state of mind. But if a slave imprint had been placed on him, with just a thought he could make him die. He would never be able to betray him or even having any thoughts of betraying him. Long Chun didn't treat the little fellow as a slave, but more as a partner and companion. But the current Scarlet Flame Snow Wolf was just like a child, so he still needed Long Chun's help to figure what he shouldn't do. Little Snow peeked up and saw that Long Chun's expression was still gloomy. He slowly raised his head and started rubbing back and forth against Long Chun's chin, almost as if he was petting him. Long Chun wanted to laugh inside, but he still endured. If he let it end just like this, then Little Snow would be even bolder next time. He had to teach him a lesson. The little fellow rubbed him for a long time. Seeing that Long Chun's face still remained dark, he actually lowered his head and started to cry. Long Chun practically couldn't believe his own eyes. Carefully examining him, he confirmed that they really were tears. His nose even sneezed a couple times as if he were choked with sobs. "Okay, well, next time don't act like that. It's dangerous and will hurt you. Understood?" Long Chun bitterly smiled and gently rubbed Little Snow's head. The little fellow seemed to have understood Long Chun's meaning and once more started using his small head to rub Long Chun's chin. Long Chun sighed. It seemed he also had to worry about this fellow as well. Looking to the side where Amon was currently salivating, he felt a huge headache oncoming. When it was essentially cooked, Long Chun cut off a large piece and gave it to Little Snow. The little fellow didn't like eating ground meat and preferred torn-off pieces. Long Chun merely cut off a couple kilograms of meat. The rest were all given to Amon, because Amon's stomach seemed to be like a bottomless pit that would never fill. Even though he already was well aware of Amon's appetite, seeing him practically suck up the wild bull that was several tons in an instant still caused him to feel some shock. Looking from the bones on the ground and the Amon who still seemed to want to keep eating, Long Chun didn't know just what to say. According to Amon, magical beast meat tasted exceptionally good to him, and after eating he would feel as if his full body was filled with power. It was much more efficient than eating beef. Long Chun once more examined Amon's body and found that those sleeping cells were all gradually recovering, a very good sign. At the same time, he also realized that magical beast mad was extremely important to Amon. It seemed the stronger the meat, the more it would help Amon grow. After eating, Little Snow's belly was as round as ball. He crawled up next to Amon and started snoring. Long Chun also started to cultivate. Since there was no way for him to advance to blood condensation, he might as well just condense another cyclone. As for Amon, he hesitated for a moment. With the mountain-splitting battle axe on his back, he continued to go hunting. It seemed he really would never be full. The next day at noon, a burst of wind blew by, bringing with it a couple voices. The cultivating Long Chun slowly opened his eyes. The person he had been waiting for had finally arrived. Chapter 72. Amon shows his might. A luxurious carriage pulled by a savage bull magical beast was slowly traveling through the southern passes valley. There were a dozen guards around the carriage. Suddenly the carriage paused. Inside the carriage, Xia Changfeng frowned and irritably asked, Why have we stopped? The reason Xia Changfeng was returning back to the Grand Xia was due to two reasons. Not only did he want to prepare for his wedding with Phoenix Cry's third princess, but the white-robed man had also ordered him to prepare for more important matters. That was why Xia Changfeng had ordered his subordinates to travel all throughout the day and night as quickly as possible. They only used 1 day and 1 night's time to arrive at the southern passes valley. With another half a day of travel, they would exit the valley and arrive in the Grand Xia. Traveling on a flying magical beast would be much faster, but due to how many people he had, that was not an option. Furthermore, flying magical beasts were large targets. If they ended up running into a stronger group of flying magical beasts, they would definitely die without the slightest chance of fleeing. "Prince, there's people blocking the path," reported one of the guards outside the carriage. "Who?" Xia Changfeng was startled. "People you're familiar with." Xia Changfeng frowned and exited his carriage. The valley was extremely narrow here. If they wanted to get through this pass, they had to go through that junction. But at that narrow opening were two figures standing there calmly. When he saw who they were, Xia Changfeng laughed. But a dark light flashed in his eyes. "Long Qin, are you waiting here to say goodbye?" Xia Changfeng waved his hand and his guards all spread out, quickly forcing a half-ring around Long Chen and Un. Long Chen looked at Xia Changfeng and nodded. "You're right. Seeing how arduous your travels are, I decided to get here a step earlier and help send you on your way." "Don't tell you two are here because you think you can assassinate me?" Xia Changfeng sneered. "Well, I don't think assassinate is the right word. We're slaughtering today." His face turned icy cold as he pointed at Xia Changfeng. "I won't play any more meaningless word games with you. You bastard, was the hidden energy within Chu Yao's body you're doing?" Being reminded of Chu Yao's experiences, Long Chen's killing intent soared. Currently Chu Yao could essentially count as his woman, so he was completely unable to accept such a thing. At the same time, Chu Yao's experiences reminded him of his own. If what had happened to his body was related to Xia Changfeng, then Xia Changfeng was his greatest chance of finding the true person behind this. Xia Changfeng's expression changed slightly. Obviously Long Chen's words startled him, but he coldly replied, "It seems you actually know quite a bit. But that's not a problem. A dead man can know even more without any harm." This reply was extremely vague and wasn't what Long Chen had been hoping to hear. However, he could now confirm for sure that Xia Changfeng knew many things. Long Chen laughed. Perhaps he would be able to learn many of those secrets from Xia Changfeng today. "Long Chen, I originally thought that you were a smart guy. But today I find that I was wrong. But I'm actually pretty happy that I was wrong. You actually dared to come here to assassinate me with just you two? I don't know whether to praise you for your boldness or to laugh at your stupidity. Looks like after killing Huang Chang, your appetite has really grown without limit. Do you think you are unmatched under the heavens? Wang Mang, weren't you always complaining I didn't give you a chance to display your feelings? Here, the chance has come. Go cut off that arrogant kid's head," disdainfully said Xia Changfeng. Xia Changfeng's last sentence was towards one of his guards. That Wang Mang was extremely tall and strong, and his face was as dark as coal. Hearing Xia Changfeng's command, he sneered, revealing a set of sinister white teeth, appearing just like a bloodthirsty animal. Wang Mang was also one of his guards that was just like Huang Chang. He was one of Xia Changfeng's secret weapons. However, Huang Chang was in the sun while he was in the dark. Anyone who knew Xia Changfeng had known about Huang Chang, but no one had known about this black-faced guard. "Don't worry, master. I can crush him in less than 10 exchanges." Wang Mang laughed and rushed forward. A long broadsword was pulled out of its sheath in Wang Mang's hands, causing Long Chen's eyes to narrow slightly. Most broadswords were only slightly wider than regular swords, a width of around 4 fingers. That was because as the width increased, the thickness also had to increase. In the end, a broadsword was many times heavier than a regular sword. Most cultivators that could use broadswords were those specialized in power. And as for Wang Mang, his broadsword had reached a shocking width of 7 inches. 7 inches wide and 3 inches thick. Its weight was definitely shocking. Before the sword even reached, a terrifying whistling gale had already blown over. The air revolved around it as it chopped down at Long Chen. "You're mine." Long Chen didn't move. Behind him, Amon shouted, and the splitting mountain battle-axe in his hand cut through the space. It turned into a whistling golden light that clashed with Wang Mang's broadsword. Sparks shot everywhere and an ear-ringing explosion out. Some of the guards had their eardrums split from the explosive ringing. Blood slowly flowed out of their ears and they were unable to hear anything after. Both sides were blown back. Amon thudded back 3 steps before stabilizing. But Wang Mang was blown 10 meters back despite doing his best to stabilize himself. His legs left behind 2 deep scars on the ground. After just that one earth-shattering exchange, all of Xia Changfeng's men all looked at the giant Amon with horror. When Xia Changfeng saw Amon's mountain-splitting battle-axe, his pupils shrunk as he recognized it from the auction. That was something that weighed over 2 tons. Looking at Amon's stature and huge hands, it was as if that battle-axe had been custom-made for him. It wasn't at all heavy to him. While Xia Changfeng was shocked, Wang Mang was even more shocked. Ever since he had been a child, he had always possessed an extremely great innate strength. That broadsword in his hand weighed over a ton, and by using it in combat, there were extremely few people in the same class as him who could manage to endure even 3 exchanges. Although Huang Chang was also one of Xia Changfeng's secret weapons, Wang Mang would still be able to defeat him in 10 exchanges even if he used his beast transformation. But now he was forced back by a blockhead who didn't have the slightest fluctuations of a cultivation base. Not only was he shocked, but he was also infuriated. Wang Mang roared and blood chi soared from his body. He had originally been planning on fighting Long Chen, so he hadn't wanted to display his full strength. Reserving his strength was simply his habit from being raised with Huang Chang as one of Xia Changfeng's secret weapons. But now there was someone who might actually surpass him in terms of brute strength. His anger sword, he definitely would not allow such a person to emerge. The sword in his hand shivered and space began to rumble. This time the gale winds released from his broadsword sounded even more mournful, almost as if a Yama king of hell was demanding lives. This kind of harsh and cold attack was extremely terrifying. But while Long Chen was shocked, he was also relieved. Wang Mang was someone who focused on pure power and didn't like skillful techniques. Although his style was simple, his killing power was also great. Luckily, this kind of attack was the easiest for the simple Amon to handle. That was because Amon also didn't understand any skilled techniques. Boom! They once more collided fiercely, intensely shaking the earth and releasing terrifying chi waves that spread out, withering the vegetation and causing destruction everywhere. If it had just been the withering of the grass and the earth being crushed, then it would have been fine. However, there were also many boulders and smaller stones that were split and sent flying out. Due to the earlier collision being so intense that many of the guards could no longer hear, one of them was actually directly shot through the head with one of those flying rock fragments. The terrifying force behind it made the rock shoot straight through the head, causing his corpse to fall silently to the ground. The others all hastily retreated when they saw that. Such a battle was too intimidating. To die like that without even knowing what happened was truly too meaningless. Explosive collisions continued to ring out as one huge broadsword and one huge battle-axe continuously crashed. Sparks shot wildly every time they collided, and even the earth would shake as well. Looking at Un, who seemed to be possessed by a god of war, a bit of excitement rose in him. Amon had finally started to show off his might. Although this currently still wasn't his full strength, but in any case, at least his sweat and tears in training him weren't completely wasted. But that was also because they had been lucky enough to run into Wang Mang. If it had been Huang Chang, Amon probably would not have been able to hold on. Amon had no fighting experience. Any experience he had was only from going hunting with Long Chen these few days. Furthermore, Amon had no idea how to properly attack. Even up till this point, Amon would only react defensively after seeing his opponent's attack. If Amon really did strike, that would completely reveal his fatal weak point. But Wang Mang's wild series of attacks had actually masked Amon's weak points. If it had been Huang Chang, he would definitely have first probed out his opponent's weak spots before delivering a killing blow. But Wang Mang didn't have any information on Amon. Otherwise, no matter how much strength Amon had, the him who had no experience would probably have been defeated in just a couple exchanges. Wang Mang was actually excited to see that Amon only defended without attacking. In fact, he even became angry, thinking Amon was playing around with him. His attacks become more and more aggressive. In just the blink of an eye, a dozen exchanges passed. But what surprised Long Chen was that Amon's skill with the battle axe was actually increasing. He no longer seemed like a beginner. When it came to battle axe techniques or skills, Long Chen had never taught a single one to Amon. That was because even if he had, it would have been useless. And furthermore, it wasn't as if Long Chen knew any anyways. Amon seemed to have a kind of innate instinct for battle. As the battle progressed, he could actually automatically comprehend things. It was just like how his body didn't need to cultivate and would just automatically absorb spiritual qi from the world. Seeing that Amon was capable of holding his own under Wang Mang's torrential blows, Long Chen thanked his luck. Wang Mang's luck truly was terrible. He was actually suppressed by Amon, who didn't have any fighting experience. His broadsword's focus was not on skillful techniques, but on using brute force to smash the opponent. But the result was that under Amon's might, he was unable to display that kind of power. If it had been a different expert skilled in softer techniques, Amon would have been quickly defeated. The world truly was marvelous. He had truly made the right choice to bring Amon along. Seeing Amon was temporarily not in any danger, Long Chen didn't wait any longer. It was time for him to take advantage of the shock Amon had caused everyone. Looking at the stunned Xia Changfeng, Long Chen shot forward, smashing his fist down. Chapter 73, Beheading Xia Changfeng. Xia Changfeng had never imagined that the powerful weapon he had hidden by his side for so long would be held up by some blockhead. After all, Wang Mang's combat ability was such that even Huang Chang would be unable to endure 10 exchanges with him. But that big blockhead had already blocked over 30 blows, and even seemed as if he had energy to spare. How could that possibly not shock him? Back in the heroic assembly house, Amon had used his full strength to just barely block a single blow from Huang Chang. That was actually something Xia Changfeng had questioned Huang Chang about after. Huang Chang had replied that that blockhead's power was a bit strange, but it wasn't anything worth worrying about. He could easily kill him. But that person who Huang Chang had said he could easily kill was actually able to hold back someone who could easily kill Huang Chang. In the midst of his shock, his instincts suddenly gave off a powerful warning and he punched out without even thinking about it. Boom! Long Chen's silent fist was blocked. Xia Changfeng borrowed its power to float back. His guards also now reacted and came to his help, drawing their weapons and charging at Long Chen. Long Chen coldly snorted and formed a hand seal. A sphere of light quickly condensed between his hands. A terrifying temperature came from it that caused space to twist and warp. Quick, retreat! Seeing that light, Xia Changfeng's expression changed greatly and he hastily shouted out. But due to their eardrums having been broken from before, those guards were extremely slow to react. By the time they realized what Xia Changfeng was saying, Long Chen had already completed his preparations. The egg-sized ball of light in his hand shot out, leaving behind a streak of light. Even the space that it shot through became hot enough to cause space to twist. Boom! That ball of light shot straight into the middle of the group of guards and exploded, enveloping them in a terrifying scarlet blaze. Mournful screams rang out as that terrifying blaze spread to 30 meters, enveloping every single of the guards in its midst. That blaze was precisely Long Chen's pill flame. He had collected all the pill flame within his body and sent it out, compressing it to such an extent that it formed a small ball of flame. That flame ball was called a pill blaze. Ordinarily, only experts who had cultivated to pill master were capable of condensing such a pill blaze. That was because condensing such a pill blaze not only required an extremely powerful pill flame, but it also required an extremely powerful spiritual strength. That was because condensing it to such a point was extremely dangerous. The slightest slip could cause the flame to explode in your body. Long Chen not only had a powerful beast flame, but the power of his spiritual strength went without saying. Most importantly, with the pill god's memories in his spirit, such a usage of his pill flame was practically child's play. Although this was a basic technique for pill cultivators, its power was truly frightful. Once the temperature of the condensed pill flame was released, even blood condensation experts would be unable to block it. The dozen guards were immediately burnt to a crisp. Pill flame was not the same as ordinary fire. It was basically inextinguishable. And there were also no pools of water around anyways. Those guards were only able to hold on for at most a couple breaths' time before dying. An unpleasant scorched smell filled the air. A dozen of Xia Changfeng's competent subordinates were lost just like that. His face was ashen and his eyes seemed to spit flames. Long Chen's face was a bit pale now. That was the full force of his pill flame, and the aftermath of such a great consumption was definitely not small, even to him. Those guards were all Xia Changfeng's elite troops. The majority had all been at the mid-blood condensation realm or above. Long Chen could only use such a method to quickly defeat them. Although the sacrifice was large and he would no longer be able to use his pill flame for a while, it had all been worth it. Now there only remained Xia Changfeng for him to deal with. He didn't have to worry about other people launching sneak attacks on him. Long Chen, Xia Changfeng ground his teeth as he looked at Long Chen. What's up? Long Chen brushed the ashes off his clothes indifferently. I'll kill you. Xia Changfeng's voice was trembling slightly. The anger inside him had already reached a critical level. That's just what I was going to say, said Long Chen. But before that, I want to know who placed those spiritual seeds in Chu Yao's body. You want to know? Ha, you're dreaming. Xia Changfeng sinisterly said, Did you really think you could kill me? I'll let you see just how ridiculous such a thought is. Boom. Blood qi exploded from Xia Changfeng's body. Powerful fluctuations surged from his body. Qi waves rumbled hundreds of meters away, with Xia Changfeng as the epicenter. Did you really think I was raised as a spoiled prince without learning any skills? Did you really think you are the only genius under the heavens? Today I'll let an idiot like you learn just how stupid you are. The price for this lesson will be your life. At this time, Xia Changfeng's whole aura had exploded out. Shocking qi waves were rolling off his body and his blood qi had been condensed to the pinnacle. His pressure made it difficult to breathe. You're at the peak of blood condensation. Long Chen nodded. As he had expected, Xia Changfeng still had hidden cards. No wonder Long Chen had had a somewhat restless feeling throughout the today. He seemed to feel as if a great catastrophe was about to befall him. A peak blood condensation expert was the strongest opponent Long Chen had met up till this date. But no matter what, Long Chen was still willing to pay any price to kill Xia Changfeng. It wasn't just because Xia Changfeng was extremely likely to be a participant in the schemes against him. The main thing was that he had touched upon the most important thing in Long Chen's heart. Thinking of Chu Yao, who was imprisoned alone within the imperial palace, Long Chen's killing intent soared. Die! Xia Changfeng angrily roared. Stamping on the ground, he charged towards Long Chen. The ground he had stamped upon actually ended up caving into a huge hole. At the same time, a ruthless qi completely locked Long Chen in place. That meant Xia Changfeng was an expert who had tempered himself through life and death battles. Looking at the charging Xia Changfeng, Long Chen tightly clenched his fists. His black hair slowly fluttered in the wind. His eyes were like two sharp blades. The cyclones in his body quickly revolved, and he sent a punch out. Bang! A huge explosion rang out. Xia Changfeng stumbled back. He had never thought that the current Long Chen would be even more powerful than when he had killed Huang Chang. His punch just now hadn't had the slightest effect at all. Long Chen's leg was already viciously kicking towards his stomach. Xia Changfeng coldly snorted. Pushing down his shock, his right hand became like a blade that ruthlessly slashed down at Long Chen's leg. With another bang, both of them retreated 2 steps. Xia Changfeng was greatly shocked. Long Chen was truly a freak. Back in the heroic assembly house, he would have been able to slaughter him with a single hand. But with every time he saw him, Long Chen's cultivation base would spring up at a shocking pace. Now he could actually fight on par with a peak blood condensation expert. This caused him intense fury, but it was also terrifying. If it continued like that, then sooner or later the freak would be someone he could no longer suppress. With an angry howl, Xia Changfeng's blood qi actually completely disappeared. He punched forward. His fist immediately became a bloody color. That one punch actually had collected his entire body's blood qi. A bloody smell came from it. Blood-gathering fist. When Long Chen saw Xia Changfeng's punch, he felt his scalp turn numb. That was a fear that came from his innermost being. That terrifying fist definitely possessed a fatal danger to him. He hadn't expected Xia Changfeng to actually use such a terrifying move so soon. His Feng Fu star quickly activated. A stream of spiritual qi flowed from his Feng Fu star to his dantian. The 12 huge cyclones in his dantian immediately sharply grew and began to revolve even faster. The spiritual qi within 300 meters of him was immediately absorbed by him. This was the first time he had used his full strength since entering the 12th level of qi condensation. Flame Cloud Palm. With a low shout, he also sent a palm out. His flame-covered palm was sent crashing against Xia Changfeng's fist. Boom! The ground split apart and rocks shot everywhere. A huge crater dozens of meters wide formed where they collided. Long Chen felt his stomach flip over and over. Vomiting out blood, he was sent flying back. A painful scorching feeling came from his fist. A bloody color had appeared on his hand and was spreading up his arm. His expression changed and he hastily swallowed a poison detoxifying pill. Xia Changfeng's fist had contained blood poison on it. From that one exchange, the poison had invaded Long Chen's hand. Just now Long Chen had instinctively used the Flame Cloud Palm, not the Breaking Wind Fist. Now he couldn't help rejoicing his luck. Luckily his instincts truly were formidable. Due to having used the pill blaze just now, his flame strength was essentially all used up. The Flame Cloud Palm just now had used up the trace of that energy he had managed to recover. But it was precisely because of that trace of flame strength that the majority of the blood poison had been blocked outside his body. If he had instead used the Breaking Wind Fist, his power would have increased a bit, but he might already not be able to move at this point. Despite having countered most of the blood poison and also having taken a poison detoxifying pill, his entire arm had still been corroded by the blood poison. A numb and sour feeling came from it. While Long Chen was endlessly shaken, Xia Changfeng was even more angered. Long Chen's full-strength blow had been extremely terrifying. It had actually completely broken his arm. What caused him the most fury would be that Long Chen's flame strength on his fist just now had actually dispersed most of the blood poison he has used his entire blood qi to condense. A cold light flashed. A long blade appeared in Long Chen's left hand. A whistling sound rang out as he slashed at Xia Changfeng's head. Xia Changfeng was surprised, not expecting Long Chen would not be affected by the blood poison and attack so quickly. Even if he wanted to take a weapon out from his ring, it was already too late. He hastily rolled to the side. The sharp edge of the blade slashed right past Xia Changfeng's cheek, so close that he could even feel the coldness from it. He had only just managed to dodge one fatal attack when he saw Long Chen slash again at his throat. At this point there was no retreat. No longer dodging, he sent a kick right towards Long Chen's dantian. The dantian was the location of the cultivation base. If it was damaged, a person would be likely to permanently become a cripple. This was a strategy of relieving an attack by attacking the core. The attacker would have to give up attacking and switch to defending. It was very simple and effective. But what astounded him was that Long Chen actually seemed to not care about that kick and still kept slashing down. No! Long Chen's craziness had definitely surpassed his expectations. Long Chen would rather become a cripple and kill him than let go of this opportunity. It was already too late for him to switch tactics. Endless dread filled him. Long Chen's eyes were icy cold without the slightest emotion. He was just like a cold-blooded god of slaughter. He didn't have the slightest misgivings. His blade ruthlessly slashed down. A slicing and banging sound rang out at the same time. Blood flew. A head rolled on the ground while a figure was sent flying away. Chapter 74 Caught in a Crisis. Xia Changfeng's kick had contained his full power. Long Chen was sent flying dozens of meters away and then continued rolling on the ground for another dozen of meters before stopping. Looking from the fresh blood on his blade to the distant headless corpse that was Xia Changfeng, Long Chen took a deep breath. Xia Changfeng's hidden cards were truly many. He had always been feeling extremely restless, as if something catastrophic was always about to happen. That blood-gathering palm of his was definitely not one of his strongest attacks. He had only been unfortunate that Long Chen had managed to grab onto a rare chance. Long Chen's cultivation base was not in his dantian, but in his concealed Feng Fu star. So that kick hadn't caused any misgivings for Long Chen. Even if he had to risk his life to an exchange, he would still cut him down. He had an extremely strange feeling in his heart now. It was a very vague feeling of danger that seemed to be there and not there. That feeling had been there from the beginning, a kind of indescribable feeling. Xia Changfeng most likely had even more powerful attacks. Having obtained this rare chance, Long Chen naturally wouldn't give it up. Just like that, Xia Changfeng had ended up dying. But that kick of his when facing death had still contained his entire cultivation base's power. When it had landed on Long Chen's stomach, the terrifying energy within it had caused Long Chen's blood to wildly surge. His internal organs were greatly shaken and almost burst apart. He hastily swallowed an organ-nourishing pill and suppressed his wounds. He thanked his luck for this win. Xia Changfeng had truly been extremely powerful. If Xia Changfeng had truly used his full strength, it really would have been difficult to say just who would have died. And even if he was defeated, the price would definitely not have been small. It definitely wouldn't have been as simple as the present. His luck had truly played an important factor. Taking a deep breath, the blood poison on his hand was already being suppressed by medicinal energy and was slowly recovering. All the medicinal pills Long Chen kept on his body were all life-saving pills. They were all higher grade, which allowed for extremely fast recovery. That was the capital a pill cultivator possessed. He walked over to Xia Changfeng's corpse. He took away his spatial ring, however now still wasn't the time to examine his harvest. Not even glancing at that glassy-eyed severed head, Long Chen immediately rushed to Amon's battlefield. The current Amon was shouting to his heart's content. The battle axe in his hand whistled through the air, becoming more and more valiant as he fought. The battle axe weaved deftly throughout the air. Although there was no technique, its power was shockingly great. Wang Mang was now using both hands to wield his broadsword as he fought all out against Amon. It appeared as if fate had destined Xia Changfeng to die. Wang Mang was a terrifyingly powerful expert, but because his head had become a bit heated, he was fighting with Amon using brute strength. If he actually used his full repertoire and just used the slightest bit of technique and skill, he would have easily defeated Amon. But warriors who had relied purely on strength to fight might simply have incomprehensible minds. With another intense collision, Wang Mang was sent flying back. From the very start he was unable to withstand the seemingly infinite power of Amon. Wang Mang was no longer as furious as he was at the beginning. Instead he was absolutely shocked. He had used his powerful strength to defeat countless powerful enemies. But today his strength completely failed him and he was pushed back over and over. As he was staring at Amon with a complicated expression, he was unaware that another person had appeared behind him. Silently drawing his blade, Long Chen cut it right across his neck. Wang Mang suddenly felt as if he was rising through the air. His first reaction was that he didn't remember jumping, but when he looked down, he saw that his body was still on the ground as before. That was his last thought as his mind sunk into darkness. When Amon saw that Long Chen could behead Wang Mang in a single blow, fear appeared in his eyes. the mountain-splitting battle-axe in his hand fell to the ground. Looking at Amon's terrified expression as he looked at Wang Mang's corpse, Long Chen knew that this reaction was normal, as this was the first time Amon had seen a person be killed. Amon, this is cruelty of reality. If we want to continue living, they had to definitely die, sighed Long Chen. Brother Long, I'm fine. Amon shook his head. As long as Brother Long believes they must die, they must absolutely die. Long Chen bitterly smiled. Talking sense to Amon was essentially useless. But Amon's trust in him truly did touch him greatly. We should leave quickly but just as Long Chen was about to bring Amon away. He had always been feeling that something was wrong throughout the entire day. His body suddenly tightened. It was as if he was being stared at by a giant, ancient desolate beast. A powerful aura of death immediately enveloped him, causing him to feel as if he was encased in ice. Slowly turning his head, he saw a person indifferently looking back at him on top a distant mountain cliff. His pupils immediately shrunk. He finally understood the reason for his fear. It wasn't because of Xia Changfeng, but because of that person. That person lightly clapped a couple times and exclaimed in admiration, with just a cultivation base in qi condensation, you were able to continuously kill blood condensation experts, and one of them was actually at the peak of blood condensation. I have no choice but to admit that you, Long Chen, are truly a genius. You truly are worthy of being Long Tianxiao's son. That voice was soft and feminine, the voice of Ing Ho. He was standing high on a cliff around 100 meters tall, looking down on Long Chen arrogantly. He was just like a leopard stalking his prey. Long Chen's heart tightened. No wonder he had been continuously feeling as if catastrophe was just one step away. He had actually caught the attention of Ing Ho. Obviously Ing Ho had long since arrived. He had merely been concealing himself until he had killed Xia Changfeng. Only then did he come out. A trap. Long Chen immediately realized that Ing Ho had come to kill him. Did the fourth prince send you here? Long Chen kicked the broadsword on the ground into his hand. That was Wang Mang's weapon. Such a heavy weapon gave him a slight sense of security. Ing Ho was surprised, but immediately indifferently laughed. What do you think? Long Chen shook his head and sighed. I really was stupid to think I was clever. I actually didn't realize just how well calculated the fourth prince's words were. Why are you certain it was fourth prince who sent me here and not just me coming of my own volition? You wouldn't come here just because of that small matter from last time to take your anger out on me. If you did, then you wouldn't be Ing Ho. Waiting patiently is your strongest suit. Otherwise you would have long since been slaughtered by my father. Long Chen's voice was completely steady. Many scenes began to run through his head. From Ing Ho's words, he was now certain that the fourth prince wanted to him dead. If he assumed that it was the fourth prince who had been abusing the Long family from the start, then he had truly schemed deeply to get him to assassinate Xia Changfeng. First, back at the auction, he had intentionally allowed him to recognize the man who had assassinated Li Hao. That man might be one of the crown prince's guards on the surface, but he must definitely be one of the fourth prince's men. He had done this in order to draw Long Chen's hatred onto the crown prince. And then when he went to visit Chu Yao, he ended up helping him. By then telling him that he had investigated the Long family's matter but acting like he didn't dare say anything, he had stealthily and vaguely pointed to the hidden enemy being the crown prince. That was to trick Long Chen, making him think that the crown prince was the true person controlling the strings behind the curtain. Originally Long Chen had only half believed him, but then when the fourth prince brought up when Xia Changfeng would be leaving and what path he would be taking, he had immediately brought Long Chen's line of thinking to bear. Back then, Long Chen had considered the possibility that he was planning on borrowing Xia Changfeng to kill him, but for Chu Yao, he was willing to jump in even if it was a trap. Ing Ho angrily roared, and a cold light appeared over half the sky just like lightning. By the time Long Chen sensed anything, he was appalled to find that Ing Ho had already arrived right in front of him with a sword pressed against his throat. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.